Chapter 596. Miracle City didn't capture a single attached city, didn't expand their territory, and didn't start a war. In this situation without bloodshed, they only spent around a year to control the large forest of chaos. It had to be said, this was a miracle. Miracle City didn't control a single area, but it surpassed the military might of 1,000,000 soldiers. Whether it was the elves, the spirit beasts, or the sea race, when they were used to Miracle City's products, used to teleportation, and used to spatial transportation, they were already a part of their lives and couldn't be abandoned. Especially the Elven Bank, the Giant Dragon Bank, and the Deep Blue Bank. They were all managed by Miracle City's smart brains, and the source stones and treasures were all stored using Miracle City's technology. If Miracle City disappeared, it would be hard to estimate the losses they would suffer. This kind of seemingly relaxed ruling method would become more and more ingrained into their bones with time. In the future, no matter if there was a political turmoil or a change of dynasty, it wouldn't have anything to do with Miracle City. They would still need to use banks, communication systems, and smart brains. As long as they couldn't leave Miracle City would always be able to earn money, gathering all the wealth and resources together. Of course, this kind of cooperation was a win-win situation, and only a win-win situation would have a long life. These cities and countries would become richer and stronger because of Miracle City. West Sea City had officially become a member of the Forest Alliance, and the 18 attached islands, seabed, and coastal cities had all joined the Forest Alliance. Chu Tian didn't have to worry about anything else. There were no powers in the Forest of Chaos that could threaten the Forest Alliance. As for the empires on the continent, Chu Tian wasn't worried about this at all. Perhaps these powers were stronger than the current Forest Alliance in terms of military might and background, but the emperor was far away. Even if Chu Tian provoked them, what could these emperors do to Chu Tian? Chu Tian asked for a luxurious yacht and took all the beauties out to play. From the beautiful Crystal Bay to the distant sea, they passed several large islands. There were West Sea cities, attached cities on the islands, and there were several underwater cities. Each city was filled with a foreign style. This was something that could never be seen on the continent, in the forest, or anywhere else. When Chu Tian brought the beauties out, West Sea City was bustling with activity. It didn't take long for a transport tower to be built in West Sea City. Miracle City sent over large amounts of craftsmen and scholars to create other facilities for West Sea City. A few days later, the cell phones in West Sea City could be used normally. Miracle City's communication technology was built on the foundation of magnetic sound and magnetic image. In the past 2 years, it had been upgraded several times. The signal was stronger and had a wider coverage. Although it was not enough to communicate with the underground world or beyond the heavens, it was already quite perfect in the normal regions of the continent. Miracle City's cell phones had been continuously upgraded, and now they had very powerful functions. Not only could they communicate, take pictures, and receive audio, they even had a complete operating system that could be used for shopping, sending messages, and etc. This was just the beginning. After West Sea City was covered in the basic communication network, Miracle City's engineers began to build a giant space warehouse for West Sea City, because West Sea City would become the trading center of the Forest Alliance that was second only to Miracle City, so of course they needed a strong logistics system. The Miracle Shopping Center was already set up. Bo Sha already couldn't wait to expand the Miracle Shopping Center to all the cities that traded with West Sea City. West Sea City would be the main agent for the entire region. Not only would they be responsible for building the platform for Miracle City, they would also be able to create their own channels. For example, Miracle City's popular products like canned food, radios, phonographs, cameras, cell phones, as well as various pills, talismans, or the leather and herbs West Sea City bought from the forest, as well as the pearls from the deep sea, and etc. They could all be sold through their own warehouses. This would be an incomparably large market. In the forest, in the sea, in the mountains, underground, and in the sky, large amounts of materials were very cheap. Once they were sold to various countries, the price would increase by several dozen times. The more profitable materials could be directly transported through the space warehouse. The less profitable materials that were in large demand West Sea City could use the space warehouse to collect them and then ship them to various cities. In short, West Sea City wouldn't just be a trading center in the future, it would also have the chance to become the largest wholesale market on the West Coast. With West Sea City's connections and channels in several countries, they could quickly enter these places. This was enough for West Sea City to make a lot of money. The Sea Race all aimed at this business opportunity. The Miracle Shopping Center had just been established and the large and small Sea Race tribes all applied to open stores, joining the entrepreneurial army. This was such a large matter. How could the other places in the alliance not know about it? Among the several Kingdom Alliance members, there was a small country called the West Chu Kingdom. The West Chu Kingdom was a kingdom where humans and spirit beasts lived together, but humans were the main ones. The ratio of humans to spirit beasts was 3-2. The West Chu Kingdom didn't have any rare materials, so it was a very poor country. It couldn't even compare to southern Xia in the past. When the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom invaded, they swept through the country in 2 weeks. In the next 5 years, the West Chu Kingdom became a vassal of the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom, making the already poor West Chu Kingdom even worse. Almost all of their harvests and taxes had to be given to the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom, and the West Chu citizens didn't have any freedom at all. They were like slaves under the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom. It was most likely happiness after extreme sorrow. This long 5 years of darkness actually suddenly ended. The Eagle ruler was killed in contact with the Three Kingdom Alliance, and the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom announced their surrender. Under the pressure of Miracle City and various rebellions, the vassals that had been oppressed for many years all regained their freedom. The West Chu Kingdom was one of them. After the West Chu Kingdom regained their freedom, they joined the Kingdom Alliance led by the Great Zhou country along with the other 14 kingdoms. The West Chu Kingdom was a small country with poor resources, but because it was connected to the Great Zhou country, the West Chu Kingdom became one of the first kingdoms to benefit. The West Chu Kingdom established the Miracle Shopping Center. If the West Chu citizens needed any pills, they could directly buy them from the Miracle Shopping Center. The Miracle Shopping Center was established, allowing the poor West Chu Kingdom to quickly develop. Have you heard? The forest has recently allied with another giant. Nonsense, how could I not know? That's Princess Jean Luo's West Sea City. It was a border city of the West Chu Kingdom. The entire city was made of yellow stone and the surrounding 1,000 miles was made of stone. There wasn't a single blade of grass, water was sparse, and sand was blown all year round. It could be considered a barren land. But in this kind of place, there were people who recognized Jean Luo. There was no lack of fanatical worshippers. Lihi was the young miss of a small noble family in this small city. Her family was a medium-sized family before the 5 years of darkness, but now most of them were dead or in exile. There were only around 100 people left. It was simply a small power that couldn't even be compared to a sesame seed. West Sea City joined the alliance. Lihi used her precious radio to hear this news in her room. She immediately revealed a wild look of joy as she took out her cell phone from her pocket. Although this cell phone wasn't expensive, for a border town of a small West Chu kingdom, it was a very luxurious item. Because it wasn't very popular, normal people didn't have one. This was Lihi's 20th birthday and her father had brought it back from the main city as a present. Lihi naturally treated it like a treasure. After she opened the cell phone, she immediately opened the Miracle Shopping Center. There were too many products in the Miracle Shopping Center and the content on the cell phone was very limited. She searched for a while and finally found a store in West Sea City. Green spirit coral, that's it? Lihi found a kind of herb. Father's old illness can be treated with this herb. Lihi directly used the cell phone to buy it. This herb wasn't cheap and the small city didn't have a Miracle Shopping Center, so she couldn't pay for it. Unless she went to the main city, it would be too troublesome. No problem. It could still be solved. Because Lihi was considered a small noble, the Liu family's information was stored in the kingdom's database. The cell phone was also bound to Lihi's alliance identity card. She had a clean background and her family situation was good, therefore she could borrow money from the bank. She could pay with the bank's money first and then pay it back later. Lihi chose the Elven Bank because the Elven Bank had the lowest interest rate. Lihi's application was sent to the Elven Bank and the bank's super smart brain analyzed the data, believing that Lihi met the requirements for the loan. Because the amount wasn't large, there was no need for a manual review and the source stones were quickly sent out. It didn't even take 10 minutes. Lihi filled in the address and bought the herb. At noon on the second day, a small airship from the main city appeared above the city. Lihi and a large group of people were already waiting at the designated location. The small airship was definitely something from Miracle Commerce. The airship was transporting the goods bought by the small city from the Miracle Shopping Center. Lihi. A worker picked up the exquisite box. When he saw the name written on it, he immediately shouted out, "Where is Lihi? I'm here." Lihi raised her hand in the crowd. After her identity was verified, she took the item and happily ran home. This was goods sent from the incomparably far West Sea City. Lihi would never be able to go that far in her life, but thinking about how the box was still on the beautiful Crystal Bay yesterday and now it had flown tens of thousands of miles to a small city on the West Chu Kingdom's border, if it was before, she wouldn't have dared to think of something like this. Lihi opened the box and took out the herbs one by one. Whether it was the quantity or the quality, they all surpassed her expectations. It really was worthy of being something from the West Sea. It was truly cheap. If she bought this sea herb from a traditional seller, it wouldn't be strange for it to be over 100 times more expensive. After all, the West Chu Kingdom was an inland kingdom. It was too far from the sea. What is this? Lihi found that there was a small box in the large box. She didn't remember buying anything else. Could it be that the West Sea City mermaids made a mistake? When Lihi opened the box with a curious heart, her eyes instantly popped out. The entire box was filled with dazzling pearls. West Sea 7-colored pearls. West Sea 7-colored pearls. This was not just a herb, it was a top-grade luxury item. Its value was something he could not imagine. It could be said that any one of these pearls in the box was worth more than he had bought this time. The value of the entire box even surpassed her family's wealth. This was definitely a windfall from the heavens. He found that there was a small note at the bottom of the box. The note was written in non-standard human language. "Thank you for supporting the mermaids. Because you are our first customer, these West Sea pearls are for you as a souvenir." Yuhi's expression froze. Souvenir? Perhaps, in the hands of the rich and powerful mermaids, these pearls were just regular pearls that were not rare at all. But for Yuhi, who lived inland and was born in a small family in a small city in a small country, a casual gift from the mermaids was enough to make her entire family several times richer. Chapter 597. West Sea City. The Miracle Commerce platform was officially established. In just a few days, the lives of the West Sea City citizens had completely changed. West Sea City was the 6th largest city in the Alliance. Although it started later than the other cities in the Eternal Forest, West Sea City had advantages the other cities didn't have. The Eternal Forest, the Savage Highlands, the Giant Mountain, and the Dragon's Ridge were all too closed off. West Sea City was the only city in the Forest of Chaos that was open to the outside world. The 20 land and sea countries of the West Sea all used Crystal Bay as a transit point. West Sea City itself could absorb large amounts of resources, and now that it was connected to the Forest Alliance, it was much easier to transport resources and materials. This brought large amounts of resources to the Forest Alliance, and they could export the Forest Alliance's resources to the land and sea countries that West Sea City cooperated with, greatly increasing the economic prosperity of the entire region. It was because West Sea City had a strong business atmosphere. Now that there was a good chance to become rich, how could the citizens let it go? Large amounts of mere people and sea race, with their families or tribes as units, established their own companies and started their own businesses. West Sea City had just joined the Forest Alliance and the various facilities weren't complete yet, but it was already like a raging fire. Of course there were people who liked doing business, and naturally there were people who didn't. The young girl Yugu was a very normal one among the millions of mere people. Yugu had a very normal birth among the mere people. Her father was just a small officer in Crystal Bay. Her cultivation talent was very normal, only reaching the 7th awakened soul layer. If there was anything to be proud of, it would be that Yuji's appearance was not bad among the beautiful Mer people. Other than that, Yugo had a deep talent for music, having invented several musical instruments and personally writing many songs. But what use was that? It wasn't like she could eat them. Although West Sea City had good benefits for the Mer people, and even if Yugo didn't do anything, she wouldn't starve to death. But Yugo had her own ideals since she was young. She didn't want to live her life in obscurity. Work hard on cultivation? Yuji's talent was average and her independent cultivation had reached its limit. If she wanted to reach a higher realm, she could only use large amounts of resources and materials. This was not something that Yuji's family could do. Start a business? Yugo wasn't interested in this and she didn't have enough capital or connections. On this day, two strangers came and turned Yuji's life upside down. The two visitors were actually elves, one male and one female. The male was tall and handsome and the female was mature. From the aura they released, they were at least experts in the seventh true spirit layer. Yuji's circle was very small. She had never come in contact with these kinds of people before, not to mention two elves. Are you Miss Yugo? Let me introduce myself first. The male elf revealed a gentle smile and said, I'm called Aubersen and this is Aeldis. We were originally elven elders of the Tree of Life tribe and have now established the Life Culture Art Chamber of Commerce. Yugo was surprised. The elves have also started to open a chamber of commerce? Both of them were powerful elven elders who had lived for hundreds of years. Who would have thought that even the inflexible elves would start their own businesses now? Yugo was still a little confused. What can I do for you too? Aubersen suddenly revealed a faint smile. Our Chamber of Commerce is a cultural chamber of commerce, focusing on the film and music industries. Our films have been shown in over 50 cities of the Forest Alliance and have received very good responses and returns. We have released 3 elven records and have sold over 300,000 magnetic sound discs in all the major cities. The Merpeople's songs are famous in the world and we've heard that young Miss Yuga has talent in this area, so we want to invite you to sign a contract with our Chamber of Commerce. The elves had come from far away. They actually liked her musical talent, so they came to find her to sign a contract. Our Chamber of Commerce is one of the largest entertainment chambers of the elves. Not only is our production not weak, we are also cooperating with the Miracle Broadcasting Station and the Elven Broadcasting Station. Aubersen continued to say, we have obtained great results in the Forest Alliance and have recently begun to expand into the Kingdom Alliance, releasing records and holding concerts. In the future, we can borrow the Merpeople's connections and channels to go to the Western Sea countries. This is a good chance. I hope you can consider us. Aeldis was a cold and mature elf. She had been silent from beginning to end, but she took the initiative to say, if you are willing, please contact us as soon as possible. This is our communication number. Yugo said without even thinking, there's no need to think about it, I'm willing to join. Where could she find such a good thing? Yugo liked playing with instruments and writing songs, but this was just a personal hobby and had never brought her any profits. Now that there was such a good chance, how could she miss it? Yugo was a person who didn't care about anything when her head was hot. She immediately left a letter at home before gathering her equipment and leaving with the two elves. Aubersen and Aeldis were the elders of the Tree of Life Elven tribe. They were the first elves to come in contact with Chu Tion, so they were greatly influenced by Chu Tion, especially Aeldis. The last thing she regretted was that she had missed a good opportunity. If she had agreed to Chu Tion's conditions and released Chu Tion would have owed her a large favor. Aeldis had even laughed at Chu Tion, saying that he had plucked the stars from the sky. In the end, that joke had become a reality. Chu Tion had created over 10 outer sky mines and was truly mining the stars. Of course, these matters were already in the past. Although she felt it was regretful, there was nothing she could do about it. At least she could properly grasp her current life. After the Eternal Forest and Miracle City united, Vivian returned to the Tree of Life tribe. Under Vivian's instigation, Aubersen and Aeldis resigned as elders of the Tree of Life tribe and established this company. Not only did Vivian invest in the company, she also brought her good friends Meng Yingying and Nan Gongyun to invest. The Life and Culture Company had already become one of the important companies supported by the elves. Movies, music, and culture, they all had a market in any period. Whether it was the influence on the elves, the influence on the continent's culture, or the commercial benefits, they all had a large value. Obersen brought Yugo to a special recording place in the company. Young Miss Yugo, please sing a few songs and let us see the effect. Yugo was a bit nervous. All right. The Mer people were known as the race that was best at singing on the continent. It was said that the Mer people often sang on isolated islands and straits. Their songs could guide the sea creatures, even making experienced captains lose their way. This kind of magical song was something that could only be encountered in the sea. Because of Miracle Commerce's magnetic sound technology, the Mer people's songs could be recorded by magnetic sound discs. It wouldn't take long before the entire continent would be able to listen to the Mer people's heavenly song. Yugo gradually entered the mood. She picked up the microphone and gently sang. The mermaid's voice was filled with magic, and it contained a faint spiritual energy, causing all the staff present to tremble. They felt as if they were suddenly hallucinating. A colorful and beautiful beach appeared in front of them. Every grain of sand was as clear as crystal. Orchids that looked like broken jade slapped against the shore and reefs. The mermaid clan lived a carefree life in the bay. This was Yuji's own song, Crystal Bay. Crystal Bay was the harbor of West Sea City and was the most beautiful place in the Forest of Chaos. Yuji's song made people feel like they were in this beautiful place. Yugo continued to sing several songs, and each song was like the sound of nature that struck people's hearts. Although she was using the sea race's language, when one reached this level, the lyrics were no longer important. Not to mention the fact that the Mer people's language had 180 syllables, it was even more pleasant to listen to than the Elven language. Even if one couldn't understand it, it was still an extreme enjoyment. But Yugo was a bit lacking in confidence in her performance. How about it? Are these songs good enough? I still have many songs, I can sing them all live. Very beautiful. Ildis couldn't help praising, you are a seedling with a lot of talent and potential. It's fine as long as we finish recording these songs first. Obersen said to Ildis, go give a call to the Miracle Radio's people and have them broadcast the new songs on the radio tonight. Pick a good music channel and time. Ildis said, we have just cooperated with the Central State Radio Station. The Central State Radio Station has a wide coverage in the Kingdom Alliance, so we might as well give it a try at the Central State Radio Station. Obersen thought about it and said, all right, then let's do it together. Ildis said, we'll first turn these songs into records and produce 100,000 sets. I believe there won't be enough to keep up with the demand. The two elves made a decision after a short discussion. Obersen took out a contract to sign with Yugo. After you sign with Life and Culture Entertainment, you will be an artist of our company. The contract will last for 5 years and the contract will be protected by the Forest Alliance's laws. After you sign with us, we will package and promote you. From now on, your music will be sold on the radio station's channels and the profits will be split 50-50 with the company. In the future, the profits from your concerts will be split 70-30, with you taking 70%. Other than that, there will be other income like commercial endorsements, acting in movies, and etc. All of it is written in here. If you don't have any doubts, then sign the contract with us. Yugo didn't know how to calculate these benefits. But the elves wouldn't cheat people. Yugo simply looked over it twice before signing the contract. That night, Yuji's songs were spread across the Forest of Chaos and several kingdoms through the radio station, instantly creating a large stir. Countless orders flew into the company like snowflakes. Even Obersen didn't expect it to be this popular. One day, just one day, the mermaid's song Magnetic Sound Disc received over 200,000 orders, far surpassing the previous record. It almost broke the sales record. Each record had a source stone in profit, and although it wasn't high, it added up to 200,000 source stones in profit. According to the 50-50 split with the company, Yugo earned 100,000 in a single night. What concept was 100,000 source stones? This amount of wealth was an astronomical figure to her. Yugo might not have been able to save this much money in her entire life. This was just the beginning. Obersen and Eldis estimated that the first record would sell over 2 million. Yugo had many original songs and she could continue to create them in the future. There were also many regions and markets in the Western Sea countries that hadn't been developed yet. Even if it was a conservative estimate, in the future, she could make at least 10 million source stones in profit. Yugo would definitely become one of the most important stars of the life and culture entertainment company. This entertainment company's future economic value and revenue would most likely be higher than several forest cities added together. Chapter 598. The changes that miracle commerce brought to the forest, to the kingdom, and to the world were constantly happening. Lu He and Yugo were the epitome of countless people. This company that was born in a small southern summer city had now become a giant. It was like a giant net that was wildly weaving across the entire continent. It was constantly sucking in all the resources, wealth, and people together. No matter how busy the Forest Alliance was or how it developed, Chu Tian did not care about it at all. Because of this, Chu Tian was currently sitting on a beautiful mermaid crystal boat, drifting across the deep blue sea. Meng Ying, Wei Weian, and Nangong Yun, the three sworn sisters of different surnames, were all dressed in casual attire. They wore extremely short skirts, and their long, snow-white legs were dangling in front of Chu Tian. Their upper bodies were covered in thin muslin clothing, and their heads were adorned with exquisite hats. They looked no different from a normal noble lady going out to play. Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu were leisurely lying on the beach chairs, enjoying the warm sea breeze while drinking the priceless fairy wine brewed by the flower fairies from the miracle gardens. Meng Qingwu took a sip of the fairy wine and let the energy slowly seep into her body. This priceless immortal wine, to normal people, just smelling it was a blessing of 3 lifetimes. Even for cultivators with deep cultivation bases, this was a treasure that could only be found and not sought. It was only used as an important method to attack a cultivation base when they were in closed-door cultivation. Now it was here. The fairy wine was just wine. Meng Qingwu did not deliberately absorb it at all, allowing the energy in the wine to scatter in her body. She just enjoyed it as a top-quality drink. This would be a waste of a heavenly treasure in anyone's eyes, but in the hands of Miracle City's city lord, this fairy wine was not that precious. Miracle City and Miracle Commerce were like the sun in the sky, having over 10 million flowing source stones. Chu Tian had taken the large amount of resources from the Alexis City treasury in the subterranean world that hadn't been stored yet. Adding in the tens of millions of source stones in Miracle City's reserves, they could be considered a large financial group on the continent. Even if he used up all his source stones and was in a tight spot, wasn't there still Miracle Bank? With the development of the Forest Alliance's financial industry, it wasn't hard to take out 8 million source stones from Miracle Bank. The most important thing was only primordial stone reserves and resource reserves. Miracle City's most valuable asset that couldn't be measured would always be real estate, like the transport towers and communication towers all over the world, like the underground Purgatory World's mines, like the Forest Alliance's resource fields, like the star mines in outer space, like Miracle City's investments in various companies in the Forest of Chaos, like Miracle City's Yunsect Research Lab, intelligent factories, oil mines, and etc. There was no way to estimate the exact value of these assets, because if they were to be calculated, it would definitely be a huge number. The Forest Alliance was already tied to the development of Miracle Commerce. The large and small companies in the Forest Alliance all had Miracle City's investments and shares. For example, the Life and Culture Company created by the Two Tree of Life Elven Elders, the Eternal Forests Matrix Language Company, the Giant Mountain Ranges Equipment Company, the Dragon's Ridges Material Company, and even the Savage Highlands large-scale mercenary group, Miracle Commerce had a share. The entire alliance was using the Miracle Commerce Center's technology and products. Therefore, it wasn't an exaggeration to say that as long as the Forest Alliance was prosperous, Miracle Commerce was prosperous. As long as the Forest Alliance was strong, Miracle Commerce was strong. Now that the entire environment was in a growth spurt, even if Miracle Commerce didn't do anything now, it would expand several times in a year. Chu Tian didn't dare say that his influence was the strongest on the continent, but in terms of business potential and wealth accumulation, other than a few old large empires, on this plane, on this continent, miracle commerce could sweep across it. These two were the highest leaders of miracle commerce. What did a few jugs of fairy wine count for? Chu Tian raised the jade jug and filled it for the young miss. After playing around for a few days, isn't your mood much more relaxed? Occasionally taking a break like this, whether it's for your brain or cultivation, it's very helpful. What else could Meng Qingwu say? You're the boss, what you say is naturally the law. I just hope that nothing goes wrong at home. Young miss, don't be this disappointing. Chu Tian changed to a more comfortable position in the chair. We have enough wealth to spend for 500 years, why do you want to live this tiring? Meng Qingwu shook her head. With miracle commerce's current scale and ability to make money, we won't be able to spend it even if we squander it for 5,000 years, but this level is far from enough for you. Chu Tian was a bit stunned. Why does the young miss say this? Your ambitions, your aspirations, aren't just the continent. Meng Qingwu basked in the warm sunlight as she casually said, the cultivation you pursue, I won't just be in the heaven domain realm. I don't know how big your ambitions are, but I believe you will charge even further, even reaching a point we can't imagine. This requires a strong enough foundation and technology. The current miracle commerce is far from enough. Chu Tian's expression changed a bit. No wonder Ying always says that the one who understands me the most is the young miss. Chu Tian gave a few loud laughs. But speaking of this, in just 2 years, we've gone from a small southern summer company to our current level. This speed already surpasses my imagination. If it wasn't for the young miss help, how could it be this smooth today? Since you've already boarded this pirate ship, you'll follow me to the end of your life. Chu Tian deliberately teased, since it's like this, you might as well marry me with Ying. Meng Qingwu gave a pei sound, keep dreaming. Chu Tian was very confused. Although the young miss was a conservative person, she wasn't to the point of being inflexible. Why was she always hesitating on this matter? We'll talk about our matters in the future. Meng Qingwu said in a low voice, I hope that Ying can have a unique wedding that belongs to her. Chu Tian shrugged his shoulders. The young miss' love for her little sister really couldn't be any greater. This sea is very, very big. I think with this ship's speed, we won't reach the end even after a year. At this time, Meng Ying happily ran around the deck. Chu Tian, what do you think is at the end of the sea? Vivian was also very curious about this question. This question needs to be explained with the plane structure. Chu Tian narrowed his eyes as he looked into the distance and said, our plane structure is a sphere. The distance to the membrane is thin and there is no gravity. Whether it is outer space, underground, or the four corners of the continent, there is a region without gravity. The sea water will stop flowing after a certain distance, so the end of the Western Sea is an empty void. The sea water will fall like a cliff into the abyss, finally flowing back through the undercurrents. Wah, Big Brother Chu Tian is too strong. How do you know everything? Nonsense, otherwise how could I be your boss? Chu Tian sat up and looked around. Where's Nangong? As soon as Chu Tian's voice fell, the sea water in front of them exploded. Nangong Yun's body was covered in flames, instantly turning a large part of the sea into mist. She directly pulled out a giant octopus that was over 100 meters long from the sea. This octopus was an intermediate level 3 demon beast, being around the strength of a cultivator in the 5th true spirit layer. It was actually killed by Nangong Yun in just a few fists. Nangong Yun picked the best octopus leg and brought it back to the deck. Look, I found some fresh seafood. Let's eat teppanyaki octopus today. Meng Ying and Vivian were both drooling. This kind of fresh ingredient, the company's high-end cooking equipment, and a pot of fairy wine, this was simply the highest level of enjoyment in the world. The three beauties immediately busied themselves, preparing a feast for Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu. Meng Qingwu helplessly revealed a smile. These three fellows really are birds of a feather. When Chu Tian was about to speak, a mermaid crew member suddenly came over. His expression was a bit unnatural as he said to Chu Tian, we can't keep going forward. But the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago is in front of us. Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu looked at each other. Is this place special? Why is it called the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago? Are there many flood dragons on it? That's not it. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago is one of the largest archipelago in the Western Sea and was once a part of the Deep Blue Empire. After the Deep Blue Empire split, the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago became independent and is now called the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King is a flood dragon person with a deep cultivation and is very strong. He was once one of the 4 chief envoys of the Deep Blue Empire, being on the same level as City Lord Bo Sha. Another warring kingdom? Meng Qingwu tightly knit her brows as she said to Chu Tian, flood dragon people are not easy to deal with. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King must be a very hard character to deal with. Not to mention that they dare call themselves a warring kingdom. That means their kingdom is not weak. We shouldn't easily provoke them. The Western Sea situation is not stable yet. If it was normal times, Chu Tian would have gone to take a look, but this time he was on vacation and not looking for trouble, so Chu Tian could only wave his hand and say, "Forget it, this really is disappointing. Since we've played enough, let's go back." The mermaid crew members let out a sigh of relief. The giant crystal ship slowly turned around. When Chu Tian was preparing to return, an accident suddenly occurred. The crystal ship shook violently, as if it had been hit by a giant hammer. The entire ship was almost overturned on the spot. Fuck, who did this? In the water, everyone be careful. 2 giant sea flood dragons surrounded them, attacking the crystal ship. This crystal ship was given to Chu Tian by Bo Sha and was one of the strongest ships the mermaids had. The entire ship had been reinforced, and even a heaven domain expert might not be able to easily sink it. At this time, several huge ships with strange styles appeared in all directions. The mermaid crew members' expressions fell when they saw this. It's the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom's ship. Chu Tian slightly narrowed his eyes. This was a bit interesting. Chu Tian didn't plan on provoking them, but they ended up provoking them. Chapter 599. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom's fleet began to surround the crystal ship. The leading flagship was facing the crystal ship and a 2.5-meter tall person wearing black armor came forward. This was a race no one had seen before. He looked like a combination of a flood dragon and a human, being half human and half flood dragon. His body was covered in scales and his body was slender. He had a pair of dark gold eyes, having the special dark gold pupils of the dragon race. The Flood Dragon Person. A famous high-level sea race. The Flood Dragon Person had the bloodline of the Sea Flood Dragon and was proficient in the Sea Flood Dragon language. He had a strong innate talent and was a brave warrior. When the Deep Blue Empire still existed, most of the empire's generals were Flood Dragon people. It was because of this that one of the 4 chief envoys of the Deep Blue Empire, the Flood Dragon Person Governor Lucas, had enough troops and manpower to occupy the largest archipelago in the Western Sea. He had gathered his old subordinates to create the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom. Although the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom couldn't compare to West Sea City's Crystal Bay in terms of wealth, their army was several times stronger than Bo Sha's. Isn't this Bo Sha's ship? Since you're here, why don't you come to the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago? 2 sea dragons coiled around the crystal ship in the water, and more than a dozen warships surrounded it, almost forming an airtight formation. The merman captain came out and angrily shouted, "We did not offend the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom Sea. What right do you have to do this?" Although Bo Sha and Lucas had their own forces, they were still of the same origin. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago and West Sea City were split from the Deep Blue Empire. The relationship between the 2 sides wasn't that good, but it wasn't that bad either. West Sea City would provide the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago with convenient transportation, and the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago would send troops to solve problems for the West Sea coast. It was because of this mutual benefit relationship that as long as they didn't do anything out of line, the 2 sides wouldn't easily tear each other's faces. The Flood Dragon Person clearly knew that the crystal ship belonged to Bo Sha. Why did he dare send troops to block them? It's said that West Sea City has been doing quite well recently. Since you've already made it, I think you should increase the protection fee a bit? The Flood Dragon person did not hide his goal at all. Without the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago's protection, can your West Sea city be at ease? The merman captain's face slightly changed. The Flood Dragon person's attitude suddenly changed. The Flood Dragon person's attitude changed. This matter was not simple. Flood Dragon King's Island. Haha. The Flood Dragon person general arrogantly said, for City Lord Bo Shah to lend her crystal ship to others, it means that these people are not simple to West Sea City. Capturing you will be a pretty good bargaining chip. Do you think capturing you is useful? The faces of the mermaids and mermen changed dramatically. This fellow's attitude was equivalent to starting a war with West Sea City. Weren't the two sides always on good terms? Why did the 10,000 Flood Dragon warring kingdom turn hostile so quickly? This was too illogical. The Flood Dragon general raised his spear and pointed, "Take them all down." A few sea flood dragons roared as they charged out of the water. Sea flood dragons were very high-ranked magic beasts of the dragon race. These sea flood dragons lived in the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago. Although they were tamed by the 10,000 Flood Dragon warring kingdom, once they matured, they would have the strength of a rank 3 magic beast. Roar! The two sea serpents seemed to be wrapped in a layer of water armor. The spiraling water energy wrapped around their bodies, making them look more like two powerful drills. They first soared into the sky and then drilled down. They seemed to be trying to pierce through the deck of the crystal warship. Courting death. Nangong Yun and Vivian attacked at the same time. Nangong Yun turned into a fire phoenix that soared into the sky, punching the sea serpent's head. The water and fire canceled each other out, instantly creating a mist of water. The sea serpent let out a painful howl as its entire head was burnt, falling back into the water with a putong sound. Vivian passed through the water serpent and sent out a spatial slash. The impenetrable body of the sea serpent was instantly cut in half like a small snake. The two halves of the sea serpent's body fell back into the water, wildly struggling and howling. The sea serpent's blood dyed a large part of the sea red. Nangong Yun said to Vivian, "To catch the thief, first catch the king." Vivian nodded, "All right." The two of them were teleported to the other side's flagship. Nangong Yun's body was once again ignited with blazing wind and fire, and two fiery fists descended like meteors from the heavens. Vivian used her arms as blades, and wherever she waved her arms, spatial energy would surge. Although it was just a hand blade, it was sharper than any divine weapon. "Humph, you do have some skill." The Flood Dragon General's spear suddenly came out, falling onto Vivian's body. A terrifying energy was released, instantly dispelling Vivian's spatial energy. His other hand sent out a palm and his spirit energy turned into several hundred little flood dragons. The several hundred little flood dragons interweaved into a wave of water energy that slammed into Nangong Yun. Nangong Yun gave a muffled grunt as he was instantly slammed into the deck, suffering heavy injuries. Such strong spirit energy. It was a heaven domain expert. Was the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago prepared to completely fall out with West Sea City? This kind of peak expert was ranked in the top 10 in the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago. He was definitely one of the most important generals of the 10,000 Flood Dragon King. Such an important person being sent to intercept the ship, this was truly using a butcher's knife to kill a chicken. The Flood Dragon General pointed his spear at the crystal ship. "Don't make any more pointless resistance. His Majesty the 10,000 Flood Dragon King wants to see you. Please come with me." The mermaid's face turned livid. This was bad. Several dozen 10,000 Flood Dragon warring kingdoms warships, there were at least several tens of thousands of soldiers. The Flood Dragon was a peak human expert and a general personally leading this army. How could they be ordinary people? Not to mention the fact that the Flood Dragon General was a peak heaven domain realm expert. Just this not a small army was something these people couldn't resist. Just as the Flood Dragon people general finished speaking, another dozen or so sea flood dragons emerged from the ocean and surrounded the crystal ship. The seawater was stirred crazily, forming a huge whirlpool that completely locked the crystal ship inside. The mermaid captain quickly came in front of Chu Tian. "City Lord Chu Tian, Please leave quickly, don't worry about us. The mermaid captain was City Lord Bo Shah's confidant, so he knew that Miracle City had transport scrolls. Although the current situation was very serious, it wasn't enough to threaten Chu Tian. Chu Tian didn't seem worried at all as he calmly said, "What are you worried about? You want to threaten us with this little situation? The current situation wasn't serious enough? A heaven domain expert was already hard to deal with, not to mention being surrounded by an army and the sea flood dragons blocking the sea. With just the few people on this crystal ship, there was no suspense at all. Meng Qingwu didn't seem worried at all. She took out a cell phone and dialed a number. When it connected, she gave a simple order: attack, clear the surrounding obstacles. When everyone didn't know what was going on, ear-piercing screeches came from the clouds. More than 10 Black Thunder fighters broke through the clouds, like a dozen giant knives, drawing a dozen long lines on the surface of the sea. The source energy cannons fired. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom's warships were hit by the source energy cannons and large holes were immediately blasted open. There were even several warships that were blasted into pieces. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom soldiers were slow and couldn't react in time. The Black Fighters released another wave of powerful missiles. The surroundings instantly turned into a sea of flames. The Flood Dragon Person General's face fell as he angrily roared out. He flew up from the ground and tried to stop the Black Thunder fighters, but at this time, the space in front of him shook a few times and a figure appeared from the void. With a flick of his right hand, the Flood Dragon Person's chest directly exploded, and a cloud of blood burst out into the air, causing him to be knocked back dozens of meters. Fortunately, the Flood Dragon Person's cultivation was very high, and he used a protective technique to block the power of the formless sword finger. Otherwise, that attack would have pierced through his heart. How bold, you actually dare injure me. The Flood Dragon Person General's cultivation was very strong, immediately suppressing the wound on his chest. A spear flew out from his hand and like a river flowing backwards, it instantly bloomed. It was like a silver river that surrounded Chu Tian, instantly ripping apart Chu Tian's body. There was no doubt the strength of a heaven domain expert. However, what shocked the Flood Dragon Person was that after Chu Tian's body was torn apart, it turned into sparks that filled the sky. These sparks quickly connected to form a large sea of fire, engulfing the entire Flood Dragon Person in the flames. The figures in the eyes of fire condensed again, turning into Chu Tian's appearance. It was a clone. When Chu Tian's sneak attacked the Flood Dragon Person General, he immediately released the Netherworld clone and his main body teleported behind the Flood Dragon Person. When the Flood Dragon Person attacked the clone, Chu Tian also made a move. Phaseless Sword Slash. Chu Tian condensed a large amount of spirit energy to release an even stronger sword move. Since a normal phaseless sword finger couldn't break through a heaven domain expert's domain power, this move was 10 times stronger than the phaseless sword finger. It was almost impossible to miss. The Flood Dragon Person General was swallowed by the Netherworld flames and the Netherworld power was already very close to the Heaven Domain realm. His body was covered in flames as he flew into the air. His hands absorbed the surrounding flames to form 2 flaming blades that slashed at the Flood Dragon Person. The Flood Dragon Person General had no choice but to block it. The flames and raging waves collided. The Flood Dragon Person's cultivation base was shocking. It was able to scatter the flames, but after being baptized by the Netherworld flames, the Flood Dragon Person's protective cultivation technique had been weakened to its limit. Chu Tian's attack arrived at this time, sending out a spatial sword slash from head to toe. It was instantly released. Invisible and formless. If this strike had hit, the Flood Dragon General would have been cleaved into 2. However, his intuition for danger, which he had cultivated through countless years of battle, allowed him to dodge at the critical moment. Only one of his arms was chopped off. The Flood Dragon Person General's vitality was greatly injured. He never would have thought that a respected Heaven Domain expert would suffer a loss under this brat's hands. The Flood Dragon Person General didn't want to fight and was prepared to escape. He used a secret technique to escape into the sea. As long as he entered the sea, he would be able to escape 1,000 miles away. Wanna run? How could it be that easy? Chu Tian didn't have time to make a move. The little fox's eyes lit up. The several dozen sea flood dragons at the bottom of the sea were all controlled by the little fox. They all turned into water tornadoes that drilled out of the sea, viciously attacking the flood dragon person general in the air. The flood dragon person general's face fell. He was caught off guard and was hit by the sea flood dragons. He was sent flying high into the air and was tightly entangled by the sea flood dragons. Damn! The flood dragon person general's face fell because a jet black treasure sword was placed against his neck. This sword contained a powerful destructive might, and as long as Chu Tian made a move, his head would be removed. I think there's no need to go to the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago as a guest. Chu Tian said to him with a smile, I ask your excellency to come to West Sea City. Chapter 600. Chu Tian had taken care of the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom. He didn't mind making another 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom. Are you two all right? We were too careless. We never thought we would meet a Heaven Domain cultivator. Vivian quickly stood up. It was a good thing Big Brother Chu Tian was strong, taking care of this Heaven Domain cultivator in a few moves, otherwise it would have been too embarrassing. What do we do now? This fellow is simply too daring. Nangong Yun had just suffered a large loss and was currently filled with anger. Why don't we directly kill him? There's a use for this fellow. Chu Tian released spatial energy from his body and the two of them were wrapped in it, instantly being transported to the crystal ship. The Mare people were already filled with admiration towards Chu Tian's abilities. No wonder this man could sit on the throne of Miracle City's city lord. This kind of method was very shocking. Chu Tian said to the Mare people captain, I'm very thankful for the warm hospitality of our fellow Mare people. We've all had a very happy time on this trip. I will have the Black Thunder Plains escort the crystal ship back. We'll be leaving first. The Flood Dragon General was in the Heaven Domain realm. Although he was temporarily restrained, it was still very dangerous. Not to mention the 10,000 Flood Dragon King could catch up at any time, so Chu Tian couldn't use the crystal ship to leisurely return. Let's go! They activated the spatial scrolls and instantly left the crystal ship. The entire crystal ship, besides the mermaid captain who had already seen the effect of the teleportation scroll, the other mermaids were all stunned. They had used a small scroll to teleport through space and directly returned to West Sea City from the distant sea? What did they do? This is too shocking. Humph, how could you understand Miracle City's things? I've lived for this long, but I've never seen an iron bird that can fly in the sky and release a strong attack. The Mare people captain looked up at the sky and then slowly said in an emotional voice, West Sea City and Miracle City's alliance, it really is City Lord Bo Sha's wisest decision. Our future generations will be blessed. Several dozen Black Thunder planes followed the crystal ship, slowly heading to Crystal Bay. Chu Tian and the others returned to West Sea City and the first thing they did was hand the person over to Bo Sha. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom was a very important force in the West Sea. If the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom became enemies with West Sea City, West Sea City would have countless troubles. West Sea City was now a part of the Forest Alliance, so if the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom wanted to move against West Sea City, it would be like moving against Chu Tian's head. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago didn't have any direct conflicts with the Forest Alliance. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago and West Sea City even had a cooperative relationship. With how large the Forest Alliance was, the 10,000 Flood Dragon King had no reason to go against the Forest Alliance. With all these things, it wasn't hard to deduce that the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago was a representative. There had to be one or several other powers behind the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom, so the 10,000 Flood Dragon King had the confidence to deal with West Sea City. Bo Sha came back with a dark expression. Meng Qingguo immediately stepped forward and asked, How is it? The information we brought back this time is extremely important. Otherwise, if the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago were to plot against us, we would still be kept in the dark. But the person we brought back is one of the 3 trusted generals of the 10,000 Flood Dragon King Lucas. He is very loyal to Lucas and his mouth is very tight, so I'm afraid we won't be able to get any information. We won't be able to get any information? Nangong Yun couldn't keep her calm. She rolled up her sleeves and said, "Let me try." "Save it." Chu Tian rolled his eyes. If you could deal with him with just these methods, City Lord Bo Sha would have already gotten the information. We can't just capture a person for nothing, right? Don't be anxious, there's no mouth that can't be pried open, it's just that we haven't done enough. Chu Tian said to Meng Qingwu on the side, "Young miss, I'll have to trouble you to contact the Savage Highlands and have them send people over to help." Meng Qingwu thought about it for 2-3 seconds before taking out a cell phone and dialing a number. After 10 minutes. In the West Sea City Transport Tower, several strange dressed spirit beasts appeared. There were goat race, snake race, and lizard race. They were all wearing large robes and strange masks. Their fingers, wrists, necks, and bodies were all covered in all kinds of bone ornaments. They made crackling sounds as they walked, but they released a kind of energy that could touch one's heart. Meng Qingwu immediately went forward to greet them. "We've troubled Sir Bishop Modo this time." The one walking at the very front of this group of spirit beasts was an old man that didn't look very shocking. He seemed to be a variant of the snake race or lizard race. His body didn't have any scales and was covered in wrinkles. His eyes were filled with white fog, clearly a blind person. Although this blind person couldn't see, he could accurately sense where Chu Tian and Meng Qingwu were. He walked forward with his cane and respectfully bowed. "It is Modo's honor to be able to serve the two city lords." Bo Sha felt a strange aura coming from this spirit beast. "This is..." Chu Tian introduced him to Meng Qingwu. "This is the Savage Highlands Shaman Religion's Bishop Modo." "We'll leave the interrogation to the shaman. I think we'll get what we want in less than half a day." The shaman religion had an important position in the Savage Highlands. Bishop Modo's position was only below Burst Claws, and he himself was an expert in the third heaven domain layer. Although the shaman religion was developing in Burst Claw's city, Burst Claw didn't have the position to directly order Modo. Now, because of a single sentence from Meng Qingwu, he was directly transported from the shaman religion's temple. It could be imagined just how big Miracle City's face was. This was also understandable. Although Miracle City had never dominated before, Miracle City was already recognized as the leader of the Forest Alliance. From the forest to other areas, Miracle City controlled more and more cities. If the shaman religion wanted to gain more followers in the future, how could they not please Miracle City? Bo Sha had never seen Bishop Modo, but she had heard of the shaman religion's methods. This kind of interrogation work was best done by the shaman sorcerers. The shamans were not just proficient in various kinds of medicines that could weaken a person's mind, they also had various kinds of gu techniques that could bewitch a person's mind, directly controlling their thoughts. The Forest Alliance was filled with crouching tigers and hidden dragons. Modo was much stronger than this flood dragon person general, and he was proficient in all kinds of shaman techniques. In just a short hour, he had obtained all the information he wanted. This old man has already asked clearly. The Forest Alliance has been growing, so it has attracted the attention of several countries. Modo reported the situation to them, especially Miracle Commerce's technology. These powers are all drooling over it. Therefore, several powers have secretly formed an alliance to restrict us, and this 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom is just the vanguard. It really was like this. Even if the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom was dissatisfied with the Forest Alliance, in front of the difference in strength, they could at most stab them in the dark. They shouldn't have made a move like this. Therefore, there had to be a reason behind this matter, but no one thought that the power targeting the Forest Alliance would be this large. City Lord Bo Sha was a bit worried. There are close to 10 countries secretly playing tricks in this short period of time. I think the other side's power will continue to increase. Although the Forest Alliance has their own territory, it will be hard for them to escape being sealed off. Meng Qingwu asked, "What is the scale of these powers and which one is the leader?" Modo slowly replied, "The other large and small kingdoms are nothing to worry about, but there are warring kingdoms and empires. If the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom is added, there will be a total of 3 warring kingdoms. As for empires, there is only the Big Dry Empire. This was what Bo Shah was most worried about. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom was actually working with the Big Dry Empire. The Big Dry Empire had quite a bit of influence on the Western continent, especially the countries on the west coast. West Sea City had once worked with the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom to resist the Big Dry Empire's ambitions, but who would have thought that as soon as West Sea City joined the Forest Alliance, the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom would run over to the Big Dry Empire. Once the Big Dry Empire came into conflict with the Forest Alliance, it would be a long battle. This was because the Big Dry Empire was different from any opponent Miracle Commerce had faced before. The forest giants looked strong, but they didn't have many people and they all had their own weaknesses. The Eagle Burial Kingdom looked strong, but they were actually strong on the outside and weak on the inside. The Big Dry Empire was different. This was an incomparably strong empire with 7,800 years of history. It had a solid background and a vast territory, with over 21 billion people. Even if the kingdom alliance supported by Chu Tian was added together, the population of several large and small kingdoms added together couldn't compare to the Big Dry Empire, not to mention other aspects. The most important thing was, the Big Dry Empire was a strong country on the Western continent. The Big Dry Empire had a large influence on the Western continent, and if the Big Dry Empire came into conflict with the Forest Alliance, the Western Sea countries would have to cut off their trade with West Sea City because of their political standpoint. West Sea City would suffer a large loss, and the one who would benefit the most would be the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom. So it's the Big Dry Empire, then it's not strange at all. Chu Tian rubbed his chin in an awkward manner. He suddenly said to Meng Qingwu beside him, the other 8-9 kingdoms, whether it is the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom or other countries, they are all chess pieces of the Big Dry Empire. The true opponent we have to face is this empire. Meng Yingying's eyes popped out. It can't be, we really have to fight with an empire? How can we beat them? Their battle strength is more than 10 times ours. Even the arrogant Nangong Yun knit her brows. The Big Dry Empire was one of the strongest countries on the continent. Chu Tian shook his head and said, "What are you worried about? If the Big Dry Empire was our neighbor, we would have already been destroyed. How could we have developed to this day? Actually, the Big Dry Empire is several forests of chaos away from us, which is why we haven't been alerted until now." It was too late to be alerted now. No matter how strong the Big Dry Empire's army was, they were still far and filled with dangers. Not to mention the fact that the Forest Alliance's cities were hidden deep in the mountains and forests, even underground. The Big Dry Empire's army had to penetrate several tens of millions of square kilometers of forest to find 200-300 cities and destroy them one by one. This was a very difficult matter even for an empire. Chu Tian didn't say anything for now. What does the young miss think? Meng Qingwu thought about it for a few seconds before saying, although the Big Dry Empire can't directly threaten us, controlling several warring kingdoms is enough to cause us a lot of trouble. So, we can't avoid it and we have to face it head-on. The Big Dry Empire is very strong and there is more than one empire on the continent. They are anxious to deal with us, but they can't destroy us in a short period of time. Perhaps the other empires or enemies of the Big Dry Empire want to cooperate with us. That's right. Chu Tian laughed. We'll do it like this. Chapter 601. Over 90% of the continent was not inhabited by intelligent beings, but the remaining 10% was more than enough to accommodate the hundreds of billions of intelligent beings in the world. There were a total of 14 empire-level powers among these billions of intelligent beings. There were 6 human empires, 4 spirit-beast empires, 2 elven empire-level powers, 1 dragon empire-level power, and 1 undead empire-level power. The concepts of empires and empire-level powers were different. The human and spirit-beast empires were all smoothly established and operated like countries. The highest leader was an emperor who was supreme and no one could compare to him. As for the empire-level powers, they were just one power. Although their background and strength could compare to an empire, they didn't establish a country, so they didn't have a country name and their internal structure was very loose. The Dark Knight Forest's Dark Knight Elves were an empire-level power. The Dark Night Forest was a forest around the same size as the Forest of Chaos, but what was different from the Forest of Chaos was that the Dark Night Forest didn't have any other races. It was completely ruled by the elves, therefore it could be called an empire-level power. However, the Night Elves didn't establish a country. The Night Elves in the entire Dark Forest lived the most primitive life as tribes and tribes. Only when enemies invaded would they unite and fight together. Although the overall strength wasn't weaker than the empires on the continent, it couldn't be considered an empire. Other than that, the most representative place was the Dragon Domain where 100,000 giant dragons lived and the Netherworld Sea where countless liches and undead ruled. These areas weren't large, but they were not inferior to the power of an empire. Even on the continent, they could be considered a heavyweight power. Other than these 14 empire-level powers, there were over 150 warring kingdoms and over 1,000 kingdoms. It was this kind of pyramid-like power structure that established the current structure of the continent. The Forest of Chaos had been unified by Miracle City. There was a chance for an empire-level power to be born in the future. Of course, it was just a chance. The Forest of Chaos had been in internal strife for many years, and whether it was their background or strength, there was a large gap between them and the empire-level powers. The rise of the Forest of Chaos would definitely attract the attention of these giants, and it was very likely that the Forest of Chaos would be destroyed before it could truly rise. The Forest of Chaos and Miracle Commerce were unknown on the continent before, but after the rocket was successfully launched, allowing Miracle Commerce's people to land on the moon, this unknown company and city suddenly became popular in the eyes of the people of the continent. There were good and bad sides to paying attention to. The various countries began to understand Miracle Commerce's products, and the demand for all kinds of products increased by 10 times in just half a month. Even if all the large factories and production lines worked overtime to make products, Miracle Commerce's production capacity was still insufficient. It was hard to find a single product, so the price naturally rose. Especially when considering the prices of some empires, a phonograph could be sold for over 1,000 source stones in the empire's markets. Miracle City estimated that they would be able to export several tens of millions of source stones in a month. This would greatly increase Miracle City's income and also set the foundation for Miracle City's strategy to spread across the continent. Miracle City's splendor attracted many covetous eyes. The Great Qian Empire was the best example. Even if Chu Tian didn't have any conflicts with the Big Dry Empire's Seiju Wenxi and the great general Jing Wuing, with the Big Dry Empire being the closest empire to Miracle City, it was impossible for him not to covet the fat meat that was Miracle Commerce. Although Miracle Commerce could not be compared to the Qian at the moment, it was believed that in the near future, Miracle Commerce's income would increase exponentially. This was simply a treasure bowl. Now the Big Dry Empire was roping in large amounts of subordinate countries, as well as the isolated 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom. They were thinking of ways to make a move against Miracle Forest. Chu Tian was not afraid of a direct challenge, but he couldn't endure the endless harassment. At this time, Miracle City released a piece of news that shook the continent. The Forest Alliance was preparing to hold an unprecedented Miracle Summit, inviting the rulers or emperors of the several hundred countries on the continent to participate. There were a total of 4 goals. First, Miracle Commerce would release a heavyweight product that could change the continent. Second, Miracle City would open up their own platform and even open up their technology to find partners. Third, Miracle City would open up the underground world and outer space, providing all kinds of convenience and activities, inviting the large and small powers of the continent to join in. Fourth, the Chu sect and Yun sect would begin recruiting talents. Miracle Academy would recruit students from all over the continent. As long as they had talent or potential, whether it was the crown prince of an emperor or a small character from a poor family, Miracle Commerce would treat them the same. The amount of information in these 3 pieces of news was just too large. First was the first. Did Miracle City lack technology that could change the continent? But they had always done it in a low-key manner. Announcing it with such great fanfare this time was a very rare thing to do. Now that Miracle Commerce was the focus of everyone on the continent, if they missed this opportunity, second was the second. Miracle commerce would open up their platform to the countries of the continent. This was very attractive to the nobles. What was even more inconceivable was that miracle commerce was prepared to open up their technology. If miracle commerce could publicize their technology, it would be very attractive to any country. Then there was the third. If the second was a bit vague, miracle commerce didn't clearly state which platforms and technologies to open up, the third condition was very clear. From the underground world to outer space, miracle commerce was willing to help the various large powers, sharing these precious resources with everyone. Finally, there was the fourth condition. If the first three conditions were very attractive to the nobles, strength, and countries, then the fourth condition was very attractive to talents. Who didn't know that Miracle City's technology was unparalleled? If they could use Miracle City's technology, they would be at the forefront of the continent. Perhaps even the emperors would want to send their princesses and princes over. The continent was too big. Chu Tian was worried that the news would be blocked or changed, so he sent several dozen messengers to the transport towers at the edge of Miracle City to head to the various countries. The various countries were instantly stirred. Human race, Western continent, heaven-burning empire. Burning heaven monarch purposely came out of seclusion. He gathered all the civil and military officials to discuss this matter. Burning heaven monarch sat on the throne high above. I'm sure everyone knows about the recent rumors in the country. Prime Minister Li, what do you think? The heaven-burning empire sage and prime minister, an old man surnamed Li, came out. This old man thinks that this is a rare chance. First, we can investigate Miracle City's situation, and second, we can take this chance to cooperate with the Forest Alliance. If we don't go, perhaps the other countries will take this chance. That's reasonable. The heaven-burning emperor had already made his decision. Gathering all the officials was just for show. He waved his hand and said, "This emperor will personally head to Miracle City. Prime Minister Li, Great General Zhao, come with me." The Prime Minister and Great General cupped their hands. Human race, Central Continent, Wind Moon Empire. The Wind Moon Empire was a very special empire on the continent. The Wind Moon Empire was a women's empire. From the empress to the various families, the ones in power were all women. Instead, it was the men who had low statuses, which was considered a wonder of the continent. We respectfully welcome the empress. 70 to 80% of the royal palace was filled with female officials and female generals. The royal palace was also filled with pink curtains, filled with the gentle charm of a woman. It didn't have the aggressiveness of the royal palace at all. The Wind Moon Empress was lying on a jade couch with a hand supporting her head, looking very casual. She was wearing a red dress and a pair of slender legs could be faintly seen. Her red dress and white flesh made her look even more alluring. There were several small jade swords carefully tied up her hair, revealing her stunning appearance. There was a red mark between her eyebrows, but it was unknown if it was a mark from cultivating a secret technique or if it was just for decoration, but it added a bit of charm. Beauty, gentleness, charm, and dominance, all kinds of styles perfectly blended together. This empress wants to go to the Forest of Chaos. The 13 saintesses will accompany me. Immediately prepare. The empress did not ask or discuss, but there were no objections in the royal palace. This was because the empress liked the things Miracle City sent over recently. Now that the Wind Moon Empress was very interested in miracle commerce and Miracle City, who dared to oppose her at this time? Dark Night Forest. There was a group of silver-haired Dark Night elves gathered in the Elven Palace. Forest of Chaos? Isn't that where the Eternal Forest is located? The Eternal Forest is the birthplace of all the elves in the world. I've heard that Miracle City has even cultivated the ancient tree of life. We come from the same lineage as the Night Elves and the Wood Elves. We can't ignore this matter. Us Night Elves believe in the Moon God and Miracle City has already landed on the moon. We need to ask Miracle City to help us build our Moon God's temple on the moon. Let's start voting. The Dark Night Elves' Elven Council began to vote. Although the Dark Night Elves had never left the Dark Night Forest before, this matter was very important. There was the ancient tree of life being cultivated and the chance to go to the moon to worship the Moon God. so most people agreed to participate in the Miracle Summit. The Netherworld Sea. There was an inland sea on the continent that was covered in energy all year round. It was a paradise for the dead. A gigantic skeleton ship slowly descended from the sky, and the King of Death was shrouded in shadows. Tens of thousands of liches floated up from the netherworld ocean respectfully, and they stood on the gray fog and gray ocean like tranquil statues. Miracle City holds the secret of the underground world's space and time tunnel. We need to go to the Purgatory world to find this tunnel. Prepare to leave, we're heading to Miracle City. Dragon Territory. Countless giant dragons slowly descended. Nidhogg's luck really isn't bad. We should pay him a visit. Chapter 602. The continent was in an uproar, just like a clap of thunder on the ground. Miracle City had just finished their ascending to the moon feat, and this news had spread across the continent, but now they were holding this shocking meeting. What did the Forest Alliance count for? It wasn't even a country. That was just a bunch of random forest cities and underground cities in the chaotic region. Even if the Forest Alliance was formed now, it had only been a few short months. Could it compare to an empire-level power that had existed for tens of thousands of years? Then again, even if Miracle City was the founder and leader of the Forest Alliance, they had an equal relationship with the other cities and powers. You were just a city, you only had the ability to summon and not give orders. What gave you the confidence to summon the peak characters of the continent, the emperors, and the overlords to Miracle City for a meeting? Whether it was in terms of status, low position, or influence, Miracle City that had only ascended to the moon once couldn't compare to these giants. What made everyone's eyes pop out was that most of the Empire-level powers that received the invitation agreed. These Emperor-level characters were either preparing to go to Miracle City or were already on their way. When an Emperor came out, how grand was it? Naturally, it attracted everyone's attention, which increased the influence of this matter. It was hard for Miracle City not to be in the limelight now. Miracle City's alliance, including the Forest and Kingdom regions, were all deeply shocked by Miracle City and Chu Tian's face. When had something like this ever happened on the continent in the past 1,000 years? Chu Tian had just made an announcement and it had attracted this many important characters. But what was intriguing was that even the remote Dark Night Forest, Dragon's Territory, and Netherworld Sea all received this news. Only the Big Dry Empire closest to the Forest of Chaos didn't receive any invitation. How preposterous! The Big Dry Emperor flew into a rage when he received this news in the Big Dry Emperor's palace, turning a pillar into powder with a single palm. Good Miracle City, a palm-sized power actually wants to ally with the Burning Heaven, Wind Moon, Dragon's Territory, and Dark Night Forest powers to resist this emperor. Saint Yuan Shi, General Jing Wuing, and the other peak characters of the Big Dry Empire looked at each other in blank dismay when they saw the Big Dry Emperor's rage. Jing Wuing coldly snorted, "It's all the fault of the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom." The Big Dry Empire's envoy had just arrived at the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago to discuss the matter of cooperation with the 10,000 Flood Dragon King, but the 10,000 Flood Dragon King leaked the news. Now that the Forest Alliance was on guard against the Big Dry Empire and came up with this drastic method, the Big Dry Empire fell into a very awkward situation. Everything has happened now. Yuan Shi shook his head and sighed. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom is a very useful chess piece. We can only try to appease them and not fall out with them easily. This is no small matter, and we must deal with it appropriately. Jing Wuing took 2 steps forward and said, "Big Dry Emperor, this general believes that the Miracle Summit cannot be held smoothly. I am willing to lead 50,000, no, 30,000 Golden Dragon Hawk soldiers to the Forest of Chaos and launch a surprise attack on Miracle City, razing it to the ground in one fell swoop." Miracle City wanted to use the tiger's skin to pull the flag? Then before Miracle City could form, they would first destroy Miracle City. What could the other rulers and overlords do if they knew? Even if they were dissatisfied with the Big Dry Empire, they wouldn't directly fight them. If the Miracle Summit was successfully held, the rulers in Miracle City would form all kinds of cooperation. At that time, wanting to move them wouldn't be an easy matter. Yuanshi stood up and said, "The martial king's words are wrong. Miracle City alone isn't enough. What we really need to worry about are the other powers in the Forest of Chaos. Whether it is the Savage Highlands or the Eternal Forest, if they were placed on the continent, they wouldn't be inferior to an intermediate warring kingdom. The combined strength of the entire Forest of Chaos already surpasses a high-level warring kingdom. 30,000 Golden Dragon Hawk soldiers are a bit difficult." Jing Wu-ing said with a cold smile, "My 10,000-mile raid is not the Forest Alliance, it is only targeting Miracle City. The Forest of Chaos is this big, can they save us in time? If they leave after destroying Miracle City, would the motley crew of the Forest of Chaos chase us to the Big Dry Empire?" Yuanshi shook his head and said, "With my understanding of Miracle City has a strong long-distance communication ability. With a large flying army, it is impossible for them to not notice us. Once Miracle City notices us, they will immediately send reinforcements. With the speed of the Golden Dragon Hawk army, perhaps they'll reach Miracle City before the Forest Alliance's reinforcements arrive. When they arrive, we'll have already razed Miracle City to the ground. What is there to fear?" Jing Wu-ing didn't place Miracle City's technology in his eyes at all, not to mention that we can use the illusory clam beasts to cover our advance. Miracle City definitely won't be able to sense our existence. Yuanshi still didn't agree with this method. Miracle City was in the center of the Forest of Chaos and had always been low-key on the continent. No one knew how many secrets and abilities this city was hiding. If the Big Dry Empire attacked Miracle City, offending the other empires was a small matter, but if they lost face for the empire, that would be a large matter. Jing Wu-ing directly said to the Big Dry Emperor, "I ask the emperor to make a decision." The Big Dry Emperor was an emperor, how could he lack aggressiveness? Not to mention that the Big Dry Emperor didn't place an ant like Chu Tian in his eyes at all. 80,000 Golden Dragon Hawk army, 100 illusory clam beasts, break the city in 10 days. This general obeys. Yuanshi gave a helpless sigh. The Big Dry Emperor was overbearing, perhaps he was looking down on Miracle City. The Golden Dragon Hawk army was one of the Big Dry Empire's trump cards and was an elite force that swept across the Big Dry Empire. A single Golden Dragon Hawk was already not a weak level 3 demon beast. What kind of concept was a level 3 demon beast? This was equivalent to a true spirit cultivator. In a small kingdom, a true spirit cultivator was simply a peak existence. Even in a large kingdom, they had a respected position. Even in a warring kingdom, they could become high-level generals. An entire 80,000 Golden Dragon Hawks. This was equivalent to 80,000 true spirit cultivators. Each Golden Dragon Hawk would be accompanied by a true spirit cultivator. An army of 80,000 Golden Dragon Hawks was actually a battle strength of 160,000 true spirit cultivators. This was the background and power of a true empire-level power. It was enough to make any warring kingdom tremble in fear. This kind of army wasn't enough to deal with a loose forest alliance? Impossible. This was considered giving Miracle City enough face. The Big Dry Empire's Golden Dragon Hawk army only had 200,000. Even if Yuanshi had an objection, he couldn't say it. If the 80,000 Golden Dragon Hawk army couldn't break into Miracle City, it wouldn't be justified no matter what. The Big Dry Empire was very efficient. As soon as this order was given, Jing Wu-ing led his army out the next day. Other than Jing Wu-ing, who was a high-level Heaven Domain cultivator, there were also 18 Heaven Domain experts who weren't weak, being around the 2nd to 3rd Heaven Domain layer. There were also 100 illusory clam beasts. The illusory clam beast was a precious level 3 spiritual attributed demon beast. This kind of demon beast didn't have any battle strength, but it could create a large-scale mirage. It could cover the army and create illusions, interfering with most scouting methods. The Big Dry Empire's Golden Dragon Hawk army had this kind of powerful cover. It was enough to approach Miracle City without leaving a trace and launch a lightning-fast sneak attack. Although this idea was very good, the Big Dry Empire had underestimated Miracle City's abilities. Before the Golden Dragon Hawk army arrived in the Forest of Chaos, they had already been detected by Miracle City's air checkpoints. Miracle City's scouting method used the undead towers to detect life. This kind of detection method could directly detect life fluctuations, therefore spiritual illusions had no effect at all. The Southern Surveillance Station has detected a shocking amount and intensity of life fluctuations. Smart Brains Analysis. This could be a group of high-level demon beasts and cultivators. The demon beasts match the Golden Dragon Hawk Army, and the Golden Dragon Hawk Army is the Big Dry Empire's army. Therefore, there is a 99% chance that this army comes from the Big Dry Empire. There is a 99% chance that they are attacking Miracle City. Please prepare your defenses as soon as possible. Meng Qingwu was busy preparing for the Miracle City Summit, so she was shocked when she heard this news. The Big Dry Empire actually wanted to destroy Miracle City? Wasn't this method a little too overbearing and unyielding? Meng Qingwu quickly called Chu Tian over to discuss countermeasures. What kind of countermeasures could Chu Tian have? Since they dared to come, they dared to fight. Chu Tian was already unhappy. Because of the Big Dry Empire's shit stick, Chu Tian's wedding in West Sea City's Crystal Bay had to be postponed. He already had a stomach full of anger, and now he finally found a place to vent it. Have the Elven King, Death Wing, Burst Claw, Thunder's Fury, Bo Sha, as well as all the Elven City Lords, Wyverns, Liches, Behemoths, Giants, and Mere people above the Heaven Domain realm come to Miracle City. All Miracle City's weapon systems are on standby. All airships and fighter planes are to be withdrawn. Miracle City's barrier is being charged. Prepare for the highest level of defense. Meng Qingwu knew that they couldn't escape this battle, so she immediately began to make arrangements. Miracle City's several super smart brains began to work at the same time. Not only were they preparing for the battle, they were also calculating the Golden Dragon Hawk Army's movements, speed, and tactics. Combining this with Miracle City's situation, they found the most suitable battle method. Miracle City was no longer the same as before. Meng Qingwu was a very cautious person. She knew that Miracle City was the foundation of the entire Miracle Group. Ever since the four cities joined forces to attack, Meng Qingwu had been investing more and more in defense and weapon research. Now they had spent several tens of millions of source stones. Because there had never been another battle against Miracle City, Meng Qingwu couldn't estimate Miracle City's defensive power, so now was a good chance to test it out. Miracle City could also use this chance to fight with the empires, becoming famous and shaking the world. This would heavily damage the Big Dry Empire's spirit, so those powers that relied on the Big Dry Empire to deal with Miracle City would have to reconsider. Chapter 603. The Golden Dragon Hawk Army had already arrived in the Forest of Chaos. They were very fast, but they were silent because there was a transparent barrier that the naked eye couldn't see. It was like a giant bubble had surrounded the entire army. From the ground, from the sky, or from any other angle. They couldn't even see the shadow of the Golden Dragon Hawk Army. The Draconic Eagle Beast was a type of raptor magical beast that possessed the bloodline of the Dragon Clan. Its wingspan was around 8 meters, and it looked like a combination of a dragon and an eagle. Not only was it astonishingly fast, it was also proficient in the secret techniques of the Dragon Clan. As such, it possessed extremely powerful combat abilities. Among them, the Golden Draconic Eagle was the most outstanding breed in the Draconic Eagle family. The backs of the Golden Dragon Hawks were very wide, and each Golden Dragon Hawk had at least 3 people riding on it. The one at the front was wearing a Golden Knight armor. This was an official Dragon Hawk Knight with a true spirit realm cultivation. The others were holding bows to support them. Although they were just retainers, they were still elites of the army, and their equipment was very good. The Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom had many armies, with several million soldiers in the 5 core armies and over 10 million soldiers in the country. They could casually invade a country with over 1 million soldiers. What was the use of numbers? Any 200 of them in the Golden Dragon Hawk Army were enough to easily defeat over 10,000 people from the Eagle Burial Kingdom. This was the difference between an empire and a warring kingdom. Most of the armies of the warring states were trained and used quickly. They had a large number of soldiers, but the quality was low. The foundation of the empire was incomparably deep. Therefore, every important legion of the empire was built up bit by bit through generations of accumulation. Therefore, the number of people in the main battle army of the empire was usually not that large, but if taken to the other kingdoms of the continent, it would definitely be an unimaginable force. A city like Miracle City was not even comparable to warring states. How could it resist the battle prowess of an empire? Jing Wu-ing felt that it was like killing a chicken with a butcher's knife. Was there a need to send out such a large Golden Dragon Hawk army? It wasn't like they were attacking the Eternal Forest or the Dragon's Ridge. Just 20-30,000 was enough to destroy Miracle City. Of course, a general didn't mind having too many soldiers. Miracle City had gone against the Big Dry Empire several times, and this time they had lost face for the Big Dry Empire. Their destruction would raise the prestige of the Big Dry Empire and teach the other blind powers a lesson. Your Majesty, the Martial King, we are about to reach Miracle City. Although Miracle City was a distance away from the army, with Jing Wuing's cultivation and abilities, he could already see Miracle City in the distance. With this speed, he would arrive in half an hour. Send the order. Jing Wu-ing raised his sword high up, directly attacked the city. There was no need to adjust it. The Dragon Hawk beast's endurance was very strong. It wouldn't affect its battle strength even if it flew for 10 days. In order to catch Miracle City off guard, Jing Wu-ing directly gave the order to attack. When Jing Wu-ing was preparing to attack Miracle City, he suddenly found that something was wrong. This was because at this time, large amounts of dots of light appeared in Miracle City's direction. These were tens of thousands of long-range missiles. Miracle City's rocket technology was very mature. These missiles were over 10 times the speed of sound, reaching 14-15 times the speed of sound. This was not something a true spirit cultivator could react to, and even a high-level heaven domain cultivator like Jing Wu-ing was shocked. Damn it! Miracle City weapons. We've been discovered. The expressions of the heaven domain generals all changed. They didn't know how they were discovered. Wasn't there the illusory clam beast protecting them? But now wasn't the time to be surprised, because from discovery to arrival, the speed was just too fast. The Golden Dragon Hawk army didn't have any protection, and with how large the army was, they didn't have time to dodge. Rocket after rocket penetrated into the ranks. The Golden Dragon Hawk army exploded in an instant. Miracle City's city lord Meng Qingwu spent several months, mobilized several 100,000 people, and spent countless resources to build large amounts of missile silos around Miracle City. These missiles were prepared with great effort over the past few months, and the energy within them could easily kill a true spirit cultivator. Because of the super smart brain's guidance, there was no chance of them missing. The Golden Dragon Hawk army suffered heavy losses. This was only the beginning. The army was slowed down by the missile bombardment. At this moment, there was movement in the sky. Like rain, countless bombs fell from the sky, landing right on top of the Golden Dragon Hawk army. What was even more strange was that none of these bombs passed through the army and exploded in the forest. They all detonated in midair. The Golden Dragon Hawk army was not prepared at all and suddenly suffered this kind of intense bombardment. Although the Golden Dragon Hawk army were all experts, they still couldn't withstand this kind of intense attack. In just a few short minutes, they had lost several thousand battle strength. This was a large loss to the Big Dry Empire. Jing Wu-ing never thought that before the battle even began and before he could launch a sneak attack on Miracle City would launch a sneak attack first. In his rage, he recklessly roared out, "Attack with full force! Attack with full force!" The Golden Dragon Hawk army were the elites of the empire. Although they suffered a heavy setback, when they saw Jing Wu-ing leading the vanguard to move, they immediately knew they had to increase their attacks. Therefore, they resisted the concentrated attacks and charged in the direction of Miracle City. There was no need to pretend now. The illusory clam beast released its power, and the Golden Dragon Hawk's projection filled the sky. This was also one of the illusory clam beast's illusion abilities. The illusions they created could be passed off as real. Not only did they have the same sound and smell, they could even move. They could even create physical collisions, energy attacks, and illusions of destruction. Scatter! The Golden Dragon Hawk Knights scattered, avoiding the concentrated bombardment of the missiles. They could hide into the illusions in the sky, making it hard for Miracle City's people to find them. Miracle City stopped firing the missiles. Was it effective? Miracle City suddenly shot out thousands of beams of light. These were source energy cannons, giant source energy cannons. When Miracle Commerce was still in southern Xia in the past, whether it was the technology or the materials, they could already create weapons that could kill true spirit cultivators. Miracle City's weapon technology had not only increased by leaps and bounds in a year, the resources, materials, and research were all unimaginable in the past. Not to mention true spirit cultivators, even low-level heaven domain cultivators wouldn't be able to bear the consequences of being hit by these cannons. The most terrifying thing was that other than the normal source energy cannons, there were also beams of light shooting out from the mountains in the direction of Miracle City. These beams of light had a range several times that of the normal source energy cannons, and their accuracy was very shocking. Each time they appeared, they would kill an illusory clam beast. When a large group of Dragon Hawk Knights passed by, these high-energy beams didn't scatter in the air and actually slashed out like giant swords, instantly causing large amounts of casualties to the Golden Dragon Hawks. What is this now? Jing Wu-ing was completely stunned. Miracle City's missiles were still a bit prepared, but the weapons Miracle City was using now were simply unheard of. Not to mention the Big Dry Empire's people, even Miracle Commerce's people didn't know about the existence of these weapons. In order to strengthen Miracle City's defenses, Meng Qingwu chose several mountains to modify, finally creating these powerful source energy laser cannons. This weapon was different from normal source energy cannons. Normal source energy cannons gathered energy and shot it out in a single breath, forming a highly compressed energy shell to kill enemies. The source energy laser cannons were built on the mountain peaks, and the entire mountain was turned into an energy source, so this weapon could continuously release energy at a high frequency, forming a laser-like effect. This new weapon not only had a shocking attack range, speed, and accuracy. It could form a continuous laser beam that could be used to cut through large targets or sweep through large areas of enemies. Several dozen source energy laser cannons fired at the same time, and several dozen beams of light danced in the air. Because of the Smart Brain's control, it was impossible for them to be tricked by the illusory clam beasts. They first killed the illusory clam beasts of the Golden Dragon Hawk army before killing the Golden Dragon Hawks. The source energy laser was too strong. The Golden Dragon Hawks that were swept by it instantly turned to ash or even evaporated. Charge over! Charge over! The Golden Dragon Hawk army was already filled with hysteria. The Golden Dragon Hawk army hadn't even reached Miracle City, and they had already lost 10-20,000 people. Who wouldn't have thought that Miracle City's defenses would be this strong? But the Golden Dragon Hawk army was worthy of being an elite army. Even after suffering such a heavy setback, they still didn't retreat and kept approaching Miracle City. Finally paying a large price, the Golden Dragon Hawks passed through the source energy laser cannons. Miracle City shouldn't have any other methods now, right? If they didn't use these heavy weapons, what could Miracle City use to resist the Golden Dragon Hawk army? Now that the Golden Dragon Hawk army had entered Miracle City's range, Miracle City couldn't just randomly bombard the city, right? Unless they took things too hard and wanted to perish together. The Big Dry Empire's people guessed correctly this time. Meng Qingwu didn't think about using the powerful missiles or the dangerous laser cannons above Miracle City. After all, these weapons were too strong and they could destroy the city if they weren't careful. At this time, a black city protecting barrier appeared around Miracle City. A city protecting barrier? Jing Wuing's eyes turned blood red. You think this kind of strong city protecting barrier can stop the Big Dry Empire's army? Almost at the same time, in the center of Miracle City, two giant ships slowly rose up. These two giant ships were completely made of metal, and each ship was over 800 meters long. They looked like warships and were covered in firing ports and cannons, giving people a very fierce feeling. What is this? When Jing Wuing saw the two giant ships in the air, his expression froze. Over 100 Black Thunder fighters charged out of the giant ships at this time, and behind each Black Thunder fighter were several thousand strange figures. These people were all wearing strange mecha suits, and they were all flying in the air. This was Miracle City's flying army. Chapter 604. Miracle City's aerial army was different from any other country on the continent. Miracle City didn't breed large amounts of demon beasts, and they didn't recruit large amounts of knights. Although the several kingdoms, the Forest of Chaos, and especially the underground Purgatory world were good recruitment grounds, not only could they recruit human elites, they could also recruit forest races, and they could even create a stronger demon army. However, because Miracle City had only been built for a short period of time, how could they train a large army? But Miracle City's technology could make up for any deficiency. Miracle City's aerial force was purely made of technology. This army that had just appeared was made of three main forces. The first was the airship army. Chu Tian had already proposed the airship plan. Now, with Miracle City's technology breaking through and becoming more proficient with the source energy array and source energy technology, they were able to smoothly build Miracle City's first-generation airship. Because time was limited, there were only two of them. The two airships were around 800 meters long and could be considered a supergiant. There were close to 1,000 weapons on the ships, and not only were there missile ports, there were also large amounts of source energy cannons, source energy fire cannons, source energy laser cannons, and etc. The airship was very large and had enough energy devices, so it had a very strong energy supply. This also increased their weapon and defense systems. Not only could they use energy-consuming weapons like the laser cannons, the space itself could form a strong shield. Even if it was surrounded by an army, it would be hard to break it in a short period of time. This was simply a floating fortress. The second was the fighter planes. The Black Thunder fighter planes were already being produced. With a speed that was 10 times the speed of sound, the Black Thunder planes were very nimble. The airships they carried could be sharp blades that could be stabbed out at any time. The third was the mech suit soldiers. Miracle Commerce's flying soldiers were different from the rest of the continent. They didn't ride flying demon beasts and didn't have the ability to fly. They were all wearing Miracle City's specially developed flying armor. These mech suit soldiers were the upgraded version of the Dark Hawk army in the northern militant country. Not only were they stronger, they also had the ability to fly and had a stronger shield, being able to block many true spirit realm attacks. The Golden Dragon Hawk army began to attack Miracle City. Miracle City's black barrier was made from undead towers. In the Forest of Chaos, the barrier's defense wasn't weak, but to the Big Dry Empire's army, Miracle City's barrier wasn't worth mentioning at all. They could break it in just a few minutes. This period of time wasn't without value. Miracle City's air force was fully released. Not only were there airships, fighter jets, and mecha soldiers here, but there were also anti-aircraft cannons and other types of heavy firearms installed on every mountain. Other than that, the Dragon Lord Nidhogg had brought several dozen wyverns from the Dragon's Ridge. The Elven City Lord and several representatives had also come. The Titans, Behemoths, Merpeople, Treants, and the peak experts of the Forest Alliance, as well as the peak experts of the other member cities, had come to help. Miracle City was the heart of the Alliance. If Miracle City was destroyed, the Alliance would be finished. These cities had experienced the benefits of the Alliance, so they couldn't leave Miracle City. Therefore, when Miracle City was attacked, they would spare no effort to help. The Big Dry Empire's army and Miracle City's allied army began an intense battle. Jing Wu-ing understood how wrong he was. Miracle City's internal defenses were unimaginably strong, with several high-level Heaven Domain cultivators appearing. These fellows could be considered peak experts even in the empires, leading a large group of low-level Heaven Domain cultivators to charge in. The Dragon Hawk Knights weren't their match at all. Jing Wu-ing knew. These were the experts from the several giants of the forest. The Elven King, the Dragon Lord, the Titan's Thunder Fury, the Behemoth Burst Claw, and the Mermaid Bo Sha. If any one of them were taken out, they wouldn't be weaker than Jing Wu-ing, perhaps they would even be a bit stronger. The powers behind them were very strong. Even if each power sent out 15 to 20 heaven domain experts, the total number added up would be shocking. As for Jing Wu-ing thinking that Miracle City didn't have powerful soldiers and guards, that was a big mistake. Miracle City did not just have a strong air force, they also had over half of the Treants, with the leader of the Treants, the forest protector Cenarius. Cenarius' cultivation was not lower than the Elven King's, he was even stronger than the Elven King Lancelot by quite a bit. There were thousands of Treants. Even the weakest one was a peak true spirit cultivator. Jing Wu-ying's Golden Dragon Hawk army still had over 50,000 battle strength. Even if he spared no effort to win, it would still be a bitter victory where he died together. But he couldn't care about that right now. The Golden Dragon Hawk army was already in a weakened state. If Jing Wu-ing returned without any success, how could he face the Big Dry Emperor? Not to mention that for the Big Dry Empire, even if they lost 80,000 Golden Dragon Hawks, they couldn't lose face for the Empire. If they couldn't even take down a trivial Miracle City, the Big Dry Empire's dignity would be gone and they would suffer heavy losses. No matter the cost. Forcefully attack the city. Jing Wu-ing gave another order. Everything else wasn't important right now, they would forcefully attack Miracle City now. They would first destroy Miracle City before anything else. When the Golden Dragon Hawk army was prepared to attack Miracle City, something even more unexpected suddenly happened. A dazzling green light erupted from the center of Miracle City. A thick and warm energy slowly rose from the ground. Miracle City's inner city was protected by a green barrier. They never thought that Miracle City would have another barrier, so Jing Wu-ing quickly ordered the army to attack. After 4-5 rounds of attacks, everyone was shocked to find that the barrier was still standing and it wasn't damaged at all. What kind of barrier was this? It could compare to the Big Dry Empire's barrier. The core of the barrier was in the Miracle Gardens. This was a powerful energy released by the ancient Tree of Life. The ancient Tree of Life hadn't grown for long, but it was growing quite well. This thing in the great ancient era was an existence comparable to demons and gods. It was hard to imagine its strength when it was young. The Golden Dragon Hawk army was blocked outside the barrier. Miracle City was right in front of them, but they couldn't do anything. The various armies and Miracle City's army left Miracle City and began to fight with the Golden Dragon Hawk army. There was a powerful energy in the air and dense firepower on the ground, so the Golden Dragon Hawk army's numbers kept decreasing. Damn, retreat, retreat. Jing Wu-ing found that the number of knights had decreased to 30,000 and he knew that they couldn't keep fighting. The Dragon Hawk army would lose without a doubt, and if they kept fighting like this, they would be completely annihilated. Although he didn't want to admit it, there was no other way with the facts in front of them. The Golden Dragon Hawk army was defeated. The Big Dry Empire had lost. Meng Qingwu found through the smart brain that the Big Dry Empire's army was slowly retreating. She revealed a faint smile of victory. The enemy is currently retreating and the weapons on the outside have been prepared. It is estimated that they will launch another fierce attack while they are retreating. Should we order the entire army to chase after them? It's just a few defeated soldiers. There's no meaning in chasing after them. Chu Tian said to Meng Qingwu, us defeating the Big Dry Empire is an incredible matter. Instead of chasing after them, I think it's better to directly send the army to the Western Sea and take down the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago in one fell swoop. Meng Qingwu nodded. I also think this way. When Jing Wu-ing led the army to leave Miracle City, they were bombarded by Miracle City's weapons on the outside, increasing the casualties of the already small army. In the end, there were only 20,000 Golden Griffin Knights that escaped the Forest of Chaos. Miracle City didn't kill them all. The two spaceships started moving and quickly headed for the Western Sea. Miracle City used all their strength to spread the news. The Forest Alliance easily defeating one of the Big Dry Empire's trump cards, the Golden Dragon Hawk army, was instantly spread across the forest and kingdom, even reaching the Western Sea. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago was in chaos. These fellows never would have dreamed that Miracle City would be this strong. Even the trump cards of the Empire were defeated, so wouldn't it be bad for the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago to rely on the Big Dry Empire? As expected, when this news spread across the Western Sea, there was a chain reaction. The subordinate powers of the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago, like the large sea race tribes or the various sea kingdoms, all drew a line with the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom and went to rely on West Sea City. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King didn't even have time to be angry. A terrifying piece of news was sent over. Miracle City's army was currently heading for the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago with a large momentum and a large scale. Perhaps they were prepared to take advantage of their victory over the Big Dry Empire to eliminate the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago, the chess piece the Big Dry Empire had bought in the Western Sea. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom was in chaos, not having time to prepare for battle. Two incomparably huge airships slowly appeared in the sky above the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago. Hundreds of Black Thunder fighters were released, all of them circling around the two airships. Under Nidhogg's leadership, dozens of wyverns followed closely behind, each wyvern carrying a peak expert from a major faction. Bo Shah had mobilized an army of several 100,000 in West Sea City, personally leading them to seal off the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago. Even if the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom was stronger than the Eagle Burial Warring Kingdom, there was still a limit to their strength. How could the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom deal with this kind of large force and large characters? The 10,000 Flood Dragon King's usual aggressiveness and decisiveness disappeared without a trace. He quickly ordered the various regions to give up resistance and sent a messenger to contact Chu Tian, hoping to negotiate with Chu Tian and resolve this matter peacefully. The so-called people had to lower their heads under the eaves. Miracle City didn't even place the Big Dry Empire in their eyes. How could they be afraid of the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago? If they didn't stop, they could just flatten them with a wave of bombardment. Chapter 605. Two airships slowly appeared in the sky above the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago like two metal fortresses. Although they were the first-generation airships produced by Miracle City, the outer appearance was a bit rough and ugly, with a clear feeling of being pieced together. However, the cannons and various weapons that were as dense as a forest were enough to create a large deterrent. Chu Tian stood on the deck looking down. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago was quite large. The total area was larger than the Grand Xia, the Zhou dynasty, and the Northern Militant Kingdom combined. However, more than 90% of it was made up of the sea, and the land was scattered in the form of islands without any pattern. At first glance, it looked as if someone had torn a piece of paper and scattered it on the surface of the water. Of course, the sea races didn't depend on the land that much. This was because the sea race didn't have to live on land, so to judge whether a power was strong or not, it had to be judged from the size of the sea. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom did not just have the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago, they also had several subordinate powers in the surrounding archipelago. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago had over 200 million sea race people. The West Sea City only had 50-60 million sea race people. The main ruling race of the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago were the Flood Dragon people. They were the strongest fighting race in the Western Sea. After the sea race's Deep Blue Empire disintegrated, the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago didn't have any opponents in the Western Sea. Chu Tian looked over the map Smart Brain created. It's too hard to attack these 1,000 islands one by one, it'll take quite a bit of effort. I don't think there's a need for this, let's go to the main island. Miracle City's airships were designed to be able to pass through astral winds and travel through the sky. If the airships flew over 1,000 kilometers in the air, the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago wouldn't be able to do anything. They could only wait for the airships to land on the main island and launch an attack. Miracle City didn't do this. The two airships were less than 5,000 meters in the air, flying over the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago like this. The outer islands of the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago were alerted by the invaders and countless elite kingdom soldiers riding flying demon beasts or sea flood dragons rose from the sea and islands to block the airships. The powerful shields of the two airships blocked these attacks. The terrifying weapon systems and the flying dragons formed a defensive force that completely destroyed the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom's defenses. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom's weak air force was like an egg striking a rock against the Forest Alliance. Chu Tian just swaggered through the 10,000 Flood Dragon archipelago, using a strong and overbearing method to tear through the defenses, breaking through the enchantment and illusion arrays. Any kind of defense was nothing in front of Miracle City's Alliance army. The strength of the Forest Alliance was deeply imprinted in the hearts of every 10,000 Flood Dragon country member, making it so that they wouldn't dare go against the Forest Alliance in the future. The two spaceships charged into the territorial waters of the main island. Dozens of wall breakers were fired and destroyed the main island's barrier first. At this time, all the weapons were aimed. As long as Chu Tian gave the order, the entire main island would instantly welcome a catastrophic bombardment. Stop! The 10,000 Flood Dragon King stepped on a dark blue giant flood dragon. He finally couldn't hold it in any longer and rushed out of the ocean into the air. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King never thought that Miracle City's army would kill their way to the main island so quickly. This meant that the outer defenses didn't have any effect at all. It was too terrifying. This army indeed possessed the combat strength of an empire. It was no wonder the 80,000 Big Dry Empire's Golden Dragon Hawk Knights returned in defeat. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King was filled with regret. If he knew that Miracle City had this kind of power, even if he had more courage, he wouldn't have dared to ally with the Big Dry Empire to deal with the Forest Alliance. Although the Big Dry Empire was very strong, they were still several 100,000 kilometers away. The Forest Alliance was like a neighbor, they could deal with them at any time. Could they hope for the Big Dry Empire to save them? If the Big Dry Empire really came, they would just be collecting corpses for the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King Lucas calmed himself down and used his spirit energy to make his voice penetrate, allowing the people inside the spaceships to hear him clearly. This is a misunderstanding, we are willing to explain. Chu Tian's goal had already been achieved. Miracle City and the Forest Alliance didn't want to destroy the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom wasn't weak, they had a large population and a large army. This was an important existence to maintain balance, so if this large power collapsed, it would cause chaos that would spread to the entire Western Sea. This was not good for Chu Tian. Since the 10,000 Flood Dragon King wants to talk, then let's have a good talk. Chu Tian brought the 4 forest giants and the Western Sea City's city Lord Bo Sha, directly landing on the main island from the spaceship. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King Lucas instantly felt a strong pressure coming at him. He knew that the people beside Chu Tian were not ordinary people. There were several dozen wyverns circling around, and each wyvern had a peak expert of the Forest Alliance on their back, with many Heaven Domain realm existences among them. This kind of lineup wasn't something an Empire-level power could casually send out. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King Lucas admitted defeat this time. Fellow city lords, please calm your anger. This king has no intention of going against the Forest Alliance. It was the Big Dry Empire's strength that threatened the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom, forcing us to make this choice. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago and the Forest Alliance haven't had any large conflicts or casualties, so it's better to let this matter go. This king can guarantee that the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom's army will never appear on the western coast. The king really knows how to sail with the wind. Chu Tian said with a laugh, the matter of sending people to the Western Sea to capture us and extort West Sea City a few days ago, has the king forgotten already? Don't tell me this is also the Big Dry Empire's decree. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King Lucas instantly revealed an awkward expression. He then said with a serious expression, what does the city lord want? Chu Tian said without any hesitation, cede the land. Surrender. Lucas' expression froze. He was definitely going to surrender. Cede the land? What land? Chu Tian said without any politeness. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom cannot use any methods or force to take back the subordinate kingdoms and families that have surrendered to West Sea City. Other than that, the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago must give 20 guard islands to the Forest Alliance to build a defensive line and base on the sea to prevent you from going back on your word. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King's expression became very ugly. The tribute the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom gave to the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago every year was not a small number. With such a large amount of income, how could they just give it up like this? As for seeding 20 guard islands, that was even more impossible. The 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago had thousands of islands, so it wasn't possible to randomly pick an island to become a guard island. For every island to become a guard island, the most important condition was its size and location. If they gave 20 guard islands to the Forest Alliance at the same time, wouldn't the 10,000 Flood Dragon King Lucas be burying a bomb in his territory that could blow up the entire 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago at any time? Lucas couldn't accept these two conditions no matter what. Of course, the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago will also benefit from this disaster. I will allow you to join the Forest Alliance and enjoy the resources and support of the Forest Alliance. We are even prepared to turn the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago into a base and center for developing the deep sea. Chu Tian knew the principle of using a carrot and a stick together. There is no retreat or discussion on this matter. You only have 5 minutes to consider. If the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago can't accept it, then we can only use our own method to solve the problem. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King Lucas was in a complex mental struggle. Although Chu Tian's promise was very tempting, the price to pay was too high. If Lucas nodded now, then half of the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago would belong to the Forest Alliance or Miracle City. This was something that the 10,000 Flood Dragon King, who had ruled over a region for a long time, could not easily accept. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King's eyes swept over the warships floating in the air and finally made a decision: I accept. No matter how excessive the Forest Alliance's request was, the 10,000 Flood Dragon King had no choice but to lower his head under the eaves. Otherwise, with the Forest Alliance's current military strength, it wasn't impossible for them to raise the main island of the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago to the ground. The most important thing was, after this lesson, the 10,000 Flood Dragon King deeply understood the strength of the Forest Alliance and their unbelievable technology. Although he had to pay a large price to surrender this time, the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago would become the center of the deep sea expansion. Lose some sea territory? Then he would seize more sea territory. Lose several islands? Then he would occupy more islands. The 10,000 Flood Dragon King could imagine that with the 10,000 Flood Dragon Warring Kingdom's military and the Forest Alliance's powerful technology, they would be unstoppable in the Western Sea. Chu Tian was very satisfied with Lucas's sensible approach. This time, not only did the Great Qian Empire not gain any benefits, but they had also lost a large number of elites. They had also lost the most important pawn in the West Sea. What was the Big Dry Empire's goal in roping in the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago? Wasn't it because the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago was close to the Forest Alliance, so the Big Dry Empire could use it as a springboard to deal with the Forest Alliance? The Big Dry Empire's plan had completely failed and the Empire's dignity had been trampled on like never before. Chu Tian could imagine the Big Dry Emperor's flustered and furious appearance. Meng Qingwu informed him through the communication channel, Chu Tian, I've received news that the rulers of the various regions are about to arrive in Miracle City. I think we should go back and prepare as soon as possible. Is that so? They're here this quickly? They've come at the right time. Miracle City had just defeated the Big Dry Empire, so their morale was at its peak. Chu Tian ordered, City Lord Bo Sha, I'll leave the matters of the 10,000 Flood Dragon Archipelago to you. Bo Sha was the biggest winner of this conflict. City Lord can be assured and return. With this old lady here, there won't be any mistakes. Alright, let's go. Chu Tian led the large army back to Miracle City. The Miracle Summit held in Miracle City this time had a very important meaning. This was Miracle City's first step out of the forest of chaos and onto the continent. It was an unprecedented opportunity to soar forward. Chapter 606. This glorious victory had just ended. The Miracle Summit ushered in another historical moment for Miracle City. Chu Tian and Meng Yingying were strolling through a corridor in the castle, inspecting their city. From this position and height, they could see over half of Miracle City. In order to smoothly hold the Miracle Summit, Miracle City had spent quite a bit of effort. All kinds of giant image transfer mirrors had already been placed in every corner of the city, and each image transfer mirror was showing advertisements. The fresh flowers from the Flower Fairy's garden made most of the city beautiful. Several dozen miracle airships were floating in the air with giant banners hanging from them. There were 2 battleships quietly floating in the air, and the busy workers in the city were all wearing Miracle City's most advanced mecha suits. They were currently using the mecha suits to fly, and they were like worker bees in a beehive, busying themselves everywhere, going up and down. Who would have thought that this large city filled with a futuristic style would still be a barren and weak city that was almost destroyed by internal strife a year ago? Chu Tian was very satisfied with the scene in front of him. It's a good thing that Miracle City wasn't heavily damaged during the Big Dry Empire's attack. Otherwise, if I were to welcome the various emperors in a tattered Miracle City, I wouldn't have any face at all. Meng Yingying was a bit restless as she nervously asked, "Will there be a problem if we invite all these large characters? These are all the top figures of the continent. If they join hands and force us in a tyrannical manner, are we going to offend all of them?" Meng Yingying's worries weren't without reason. A single Big Dry Empire already made Miracle City feel a large amount of pressure. If these emperors came to Miracle City and saw Miracle City's technology, they would be filled with greed and would work together to force Chu Tian to call out Miracle City. How would Chu Tian deal with this situation? Send them all away? That would be the same as becoming enemies with the entire continent. Miracle City was already struggling to deal with an empire. If this many empire-level powers attacked at the same time, perhaps they would be destroyed overnight. Even though they are all martial monarchs, they might have conflicts with one another, like the Wind Moon Empire and the Sky Scorching Empire, or they might never have any contact with one another, like the Dragon Territory, the Dark Night Forest, the Underworld Ocean, etc. Impossible. Chu Tian held Meng Yingying's small hand. Believe me, after this matter is over, Miracle Commerce's influence will expand to every corner of the mainland. Meng Yingying nodded her head vigorously. No matter how unreliable it is, if it's you doing it, I believe you can do it. Chu Tian affectionately rubbed Yingying's nose. My dear little Yingying is quite confident in me. Since that's the case, as your fiancé, how could I let you have 100,000? Meng Yingying had goosebumps all over her body. Disgusting. Chu Tian, we've finished setting up the venue. The young Miss voice came from the communication device. Pay attention, the radar has detected several powerful energy fluctuations approaching. I think it must be the martial monarchs of the various countries coming. When you see these emperors, you have to control your temper and properly receive them, don't neglect them. Relax, elder sister. Meng Yingying took the communication device and said, I'll be watching from the side, there definitely won't be any problems. There was an explosion in the sky at this time. Within Miracle City's vision, there were 9 powerful demon beasts that stepped through the air, quickly arriving. They had a very special appearance. They had the head of a lion, the antlers of a deer, the eyes of a tiger, the body of an elk, the scales of a dragon, and the tail of an ox. Their bodies were as white as jade and their 4 feet were like whirlwinds. Not only did they have a strong aura, they were also very fast. Meng Yingying was stunned. These are Qilins? Jade Qilins. Chu Tian knew there were many kinds of Qilins. The Jade Qilin wasn't the strongest Qilin, but it was the most beautiful one. Not to mention that strength was relative, at least these 9 Qilins were all level 4, 9 Qilins pulling a carriage, only the peak characters of the continent have this ability. Meng Yingying revealed a look of envy. This must be the Wind Moon Empire's Wind Moon Empress. The Qilin carriage slowly approached Miracle City. They didn't even have time to land. Several graceful beauty that could cause the downfall of a city flew out first, landing on the ground like feathers. Each one of them was covered in a powerful aura. They were all Heaven Domain realm experts. But at this moment, they were kneeling on one knee and respectfully said, Greetings to the Wind Moon Empress. The beast carriage slowly opened. A red-clothed beauty floated out of the beast carriage. This was a girl that people couldn't tell her age at all. She had the coquettishness of a 10-year-old girl, the elegance of a 20-year-old girl, and the sensibility of a 30-year-old girl, as well as the majesty of an older woman. Her face was covered in a veil, but it didn't have the effect of covering her face, rather it made her look even more mysterious. Miracle City truly lives up to its reputation. The Wind Moon Empress saw that Miracle City was filled with singing and dancing. There were strange transportation tools everywhere and most of the things she had never seen before. This empress heard that the Big Dry Empire sent an 80,000 Golden Dragon Hawk army to attack Miracle City a few days ago. This Big Dry Emperor really doesn't have any bearing, it's just that we didn't invite him. Why is he so angry? A lazy voice rang out at this time. The Wind Moon Empress is right. Not only does he not have any bearing, his army is also pitifully weak. How audacious! They actually dared to say the Empire's army was weak? Did they forget that the Wind Moon Empire was a power on the same level as the Big Dry Empire? If they said the Big Dry Empire's army was weak, didn't that mean the Wind Moon Empire's army wasn't that strong? When the Wind Moon Empress looked over at the voice, she saw a very young man walking over. He gave a graceful bow. The continent's #1 Empress, your bearing is even more stunning than the rumors say. Miracle City's City Lord, Miracle Commerce's Chairman, Forest Alliance's Chairman, Chu Tian. The Wind Moon Empress looked at Chu Tian with a smile that was not dignified, charming and dignified. She used a magnetic and enticing voice to say, I like your things very much, how about you come to the Wind Moon Empire? I'll give you the title of Great Sage, Great Prime Minister, Imperial Teacher, and King, what do you think? Fuck, this woman had sealed everything that could be sealed and they were all of the highest level. Did she want Chu Tian to be below one person and above billions of people in the Wind Moon Empire? I'm very willing to accept these titles, but... Chu Tian shook his head and said, my fiancée will be jealous. She is a little tigress, I don't dare offend her. Meng Yingying was indeed a bit jealous, but hearing Chu Tian say this, she was instantly filled with rage. Empress, don't listen to his nonsense. The Wind Moon Empress giggled. City Lord Chu Tian really is a strange person. Chu Tian saw that this period was over and he immediately said to the Wind Moon Empress, Miracle City's large meeting place has already been prepared. I asked the Empress to take a look around Miracle City and wait for the others to arrive before holding the meeting. The Wind Moon Empress was very interested in Miracle City. Miracle City had changed a lot compared to a year ago and now all kinds of facilities were very complete. Whether it was a normal citizen or a peak emperor like the Empress, as long as they came here, they would be able to enjoy themselves to the point of forgetting home. After around an hour, a beast carriage pulled by 9 phoenixes appeared in the sky. The phoenixes released a powerful energy that turned half the sky red. It didn't need to be said to know that the Heaven-Burning Empire's Heaven-Burning Emperor had come. 9 was the limit, 9 represented supremacy. Therefore whether it was the Wind Moon Empress or the Heaven-Burning Emperor, their carriages were pulled by 9 strong immortal beasts. Only this kind of carriage could highlight their status. The Burning Heaven Emperor was a robust middle-aged man with a head of fiery red hair. He let out a hearty laugh as soon as he appeared and said, I heard that Miracle City has a descendant of the immortal bird race. Is this true? Chu Tian was stunned hearing this. Could the Heaven-Burning Emperor be referring to Nangong Yun? That's right, it's Nangong. The Heaven-Burning Emperor said with a nod, the Nangong family's ancestor came from the same branch as us. Only the other families have already disappeared and the Nangong family has become a small family in a small country. I never thought that the Nangong family's descendant would flourish in your hands. Chu Tian suspected that the Heaven-Burning Emperor wanted to steal people from Miracle City. After all, Nangong Yun and many members of the Nangong family had high positions in the company. If the Heaven-Burning Emperor took back the Nangong family, he might use this to steal secrets. Nangong Yun has a lot of potential and is now an important member of Miracle Commerce. With this much potential, how about becoming my student? What do you think? This matter will depend on Nangong Yun's own thoughts. Alright, this emperor will personally ask him later. Meng Yinying saw Chu Tian send the heaven-burning emperor away and said in a worried voice, "Nangong wouldn't really be taken away by him, right? How is that possible?" Chu Tian rolled his eyes. "Not to mention Nangong's relationship with us, what the heaven-burning empire can give to Nangong, our miracle city can give her 10 times that. Not to mention that Nangong is learning the great nirvana scripture I taught her. After the heaven-burning emperor saw this cultivation technique, it would be good if he didn't take Nangong Yun as his master. Would he still dare to take a disciple?" Wind, Moon, and Burning Heaven. The 2 human empire emperors arrived first. In the following period of time, several emperors arrived. There was the Wild Beast Empire's Wild Beast Emperor, the Dark Knight Elven King and Dark Knight Forest's Council Chairman, the Netherworld Sea's Nether King, the Dragon Territory's Great Elder, and etc. In a single day, these characters that could shake the continent with a stomp of their feet had all gathered in Miracle City. The Miracle Summit was about to officially begin. Chapter 607. The Wind Moon Empress, the Heaven-Burning Emperor, the Wild Beast Emperor, the Dark Knight Elven King, the Netherworld Sea Nether King, the Dragon Territory Great Elder, 2 human emperors, a Spirit Beast Emperor, the highest leader of the elves, the highest leader of the undead, and the highest leader of the dragon race. They had all settled down in Miracle City. There were many complicated conflicts between the emperors. For example, the Wild Beast Empire and the Dark Knight Forest were enemies, the Wild Beast Empire and the Wind Moon Empire were enemies, the Heaven-Burning Empire and the Dark Knight Forest were enemies, the Netherworld Sea and the Dragon Territory often fought. The Dragon Territory had a tense relationship with the Wind Moon Empire and the Heaven-Burning Empire, and the Heaven-Burning Empire and Wind Moon Empire were competitors. It was just like what Chu Tian thought. It was impossible for these fellows to work together. The conflicts and contradictions between them had been slowly accumulated over hundreds of years or even longer. They did not trust each other at all. Chu Tian was worried that they would fight, so he separated them. He had Nidhogg receive the Dragon Race's Great Elder, the Wood Elf King Lancelot receive the Dark Knight Elven King, and Burstclaw receive the Wild Beast Emperor, separating them to avoid conflicts. The emperors stayed in Miracle City for a day or 2. They all had a better understanding of Miracle City's abilities. They knew that in this remote place, there was actually a power that wasn't inferior to an empire-level power being born. These emperors and overlords had already watched and played. Then it was time for the Miracle Summit to begin. Greetings to the respected Wind Moon Empress. 3 dark golden figures arrived in front of the Wind Moon Empress and they respectfully bowed. The Wind Moon Empress looked at these people and her eyes lit up. Of course, the Wind Moon Empress could see that these people weren't living people at all, they were just puppets. What was especially shocking was that these puppets seemed very strong. Each one was around the peak 9th true spirit layer. Other than that, these puppets that didn't have any life and didn't have any consciousness, they could interact with people normally. This was a bit hard to believe. The Wind Moon Empress asked, "What are you?" One of the dark golden figures replied, "We are the divine servants refined by Sir City Lord. We were originally normal corpses, but because we were strengthened by the divine blood, we became like this. The divine servants are puppets without any thoughts, but because we have Miracle City's smart brain, they can control themselves." Unbelievable. "Thank you for the compliment, Your Majesty." The divine servant respectfully said, "The Miracle Summit is about to begin and the Miracle Great Hall has been prepared. We invite the Empress to enter." The 2 divine servants brought the Empress to a luxuriously decorated hotel. The Wind Moon Empress slightly raised her brows. Could the Miracle Summit be held in a large hotel? The Wind Moon Empress was used to surprises in Miracle City over the past 2 days. She never thought that such an important meeting in Miracle City would be held in this kind of hotel. This was a bit too small. Disappointment was disappointment. The Wind Moon Empress didn't care too much. She knew that a large reason Miracle City held the Miracle Summit was because of the pressure from the empires on the continent. After all, Miracle City's existence was becoming more and more eye-catching. With this much powerful technology, it was hard for Miracle City to keep it. Since he was in such a hurry, he naturally had to be a little careless. When the Wind Moon Empress walked into the Miracle Grand Hotel, there were mechanical puppets coming and going. These robots were very nimble and could talk. Could they be puppets? The divine servant explained on the side, these are robots developed by Miracle Commerce using mechanical techniques. They don't have any smart cores in their bodies and their actions are all controlled by Miracle City's central smart brain. The Wind Moon Empress asked, robots? What can they do? The divine servant replied, Miracle Commerce will focus on researching robots in the next few years, including battle robots, service robots, and research robots. They will be used on the battlefield, in daily life, in research, and in many other fields. The robots are produced quickly, they are strong, and they don't get tired. They are managed in a unified manner and can be updated with Miracle City's newest technology and weapons, therefore they have a very high value. Chu Tian Commerce controlled large amounts of resources. Whether it was outer space, underground, in the forest, in the sea, or in other places, Chu Tian could mine the strongest high-level metal to mass-produce robots. Once these robots were produced, even a true spirit cultivator would find it hard to destroy them. Then they would be equipped with energy swords, energy shields, and various weapons. Wasn't Miracle City's army not strong enough? Didn't Miracle City not have enough time to train? When the robot army formed in the future, there would be no need for recruitment, no need for cultivation, and no need for training. Each one of them could fly in the sky, they wouldn't get tired, and they would be absolutely loyal. What soldiers were better than robots? The Wind Moon Empress didn't think this much right now. The three divine servants led the Wind Moon Empress to a luxurious room and several robot attendants brought out various top-quality delicacies, the highest quality elven tea, and the fairy wine brewed by the flower fairies. The Wind Moon Empress sat down on a large sofa. Is this the waiting area? No, Your Majesty. A divine servant explained, this is where you will be holding the meeting. The Wind Moon Empress tasted a cup of fairy wine. When the divine servant said this, her expression turned strange. Her eyes looked around and there wasn't a single person here. There were all kinds of exquisite decorations and plants, as well as a balcony garden and an indoor swimming pool on the other side. How could this kind of quiet and comfortable place be a meeting place? Then again, Chu Tian and the others weren't here. The city lord has already arranged everything. When the divine servant said this, he suddenly took out a helmet from who knows where. This helmet looked very beautiful and there were several dozen crystals embedded in it. The Wind Moon Empress could feel that these were spiritual attributed crystals. I ask Your Majesty to put on the spiritual helmet and enter the Miracle Summit's main venue. Put on the helmet? Enter the Miracle Summit's main venue? The Wind Moon Empress was stunned for a few seconds, but she soon realized something. She couldn't avoid experiencing the arena, the spiritual library, and etc. She knew that Miracle City's spiritual technology could create a spiritual world out of thin air. So it was like this. The Miracle Summit's main venue was in the spiritual space? This brat Chuton really made people feel surprised. The Wind Moon Empress placed the helmet on her head. When the source energy array on the helmet was activated, a pure energy surrounded the Wind Moon Empress. This kind of strong spiritual energy, if the Wind Moon Empress wanted to resist it, it wouldn't affect her at all. However, the Wind Moon Empress completely released her spiritual defenses, allowing it to enter the deepest part of her mind. Closing her eyes. Opening her eyes. In the blink of an eye, the Wind Moon Empress found that she was standing on the back of a giant crystal dragon. She was surrounded by a field that surpassed the limits of a human's imagination. There were rows and rows of terrace stands that were neatly arranged like a matrix, covering one's field of vision like a ladder to heaven. Each one was filled with people. There was a beautiful garden in the center of the field. A voice rang out from the center of the field at this time. The one appearing in the large field is the number 1 Empress of the continent. We welcome Your Majesty to the grand meeting. We ask Your Majesty to sit as soon as you enter. A tsunami of cheers erupted from the surroundings. That dense crowd of people was just like an ocean. The Wind Moon Empress was someone who had experienced a large scene before, So she didn't lose her composure. Rather, she calmly waved her hand and the giant dragon circled the Wind Moon Empress before finally landing on a high platform in the center of the field. Several magnificent thrones were placed here. The two chairmen of Miracle Commerce were sitting on two of the thrones and the other thrones were all reserved for the emperors. The Wind Moon Empress was sitting on one of the thrones. At this time, the others also arrived. Each person was being carried by a giant majestic beast. After circling the field once, they finally landed on the center of the field and sat down. All right, since all the majesties have arrived, let's start the conference. Chu Tian stood up and introduced, "All the majesties are peak characters of the continent, so I don't need to waste my breath to introduce everyone. I will introduce everyone to the majesties here." They were also very curious. There was a sea of people around. There were at least several million people. There had never been a person or power that could gather this many people together for a conference. All the brothers and sisters here have come from various parts of the alliance. This area is from the Great Summer Country. This area is from the Great Zhou Country. This area is from the Great Wei Country, as well as the Northern Militant Country, West Chu Country, and West Yen Country. There are a total of 4 million people from the Kingdom Alliance. Chu Tian pointed to the other side. This side was filled with strange-looking forest races. These are from the Eternal Forest, Savage Highlands, Giant Mountain, Dragon's Ridge, Western Sea, Silver Moon City, Emerald City, Four Direction City. There are a total of 3 million people from the Forest Alliance here. Chu Tian gave a simple introduction. That's right, for this Miracle Summit, there are a total of 7 million people here. We will also be broadcasting the entire event, allowing the billions of people from the various cities of the Forest Kingdom to see this live. Today's conference will not only witness the prosperity of the Alliance, it will also witness the powerful technology of Miracle Commerce, as well as the beginning of the continent's source energy technology. The applause was like a flood coming from all directions. No matter who it was that saw this scene, they would be shocked. Even if it was an emperor, even if it was an overlord. The Wind Moon Empress was lying down in a quiet room, but she had come to this dreamlike conference. This kind of technology, this kind of science, made people gasp in amazement. Chapter 608. The Miracle Summit was indeed held in a rush, but that didn't mean it was done carelessly. Before Chu Tian announced the Miracle Summit, Miracle Commerce had already spent a large amount of time on the spiritual aspect. Most of the important cities in the forest and the kingdom had built arenas and trial fields. These arenas and trial fields had already become one of the most important entertainment areas for the Alliance members, bringing Miracle Commerce several tens of millions of source stones every month. Miracle Commerce's ambition in the spiritual domain was not as simple as building arenas and trial fields. Everything they were doing now was just building a foundation for the spiritual network. Therefore, after the Miracle Summit was held, people could come to their cities through the spiritual network and enter the conference itself. This was because Miracle Commerce had been working hard in this domain for a long time. Chu Tian announced, "We invite the Miracle Commerce Vice Chairman, Miracle City's Vice City Lord, and the Alliance's Vice Speaker, young Miss Meng Qingwu, to preside over this conference. Everyone welcome her." The citizens of the various cities all let out excited cheers. Meng Qingwu was the one in charge of Miracle City, Miracle Commerce, and the Alliance. Meng Qingwu was smart and capable, everyone could see it with their own eyes. If Chu Tian did not have a capable assistant like Meng Qingwu, Miracle Commerce would not have been able to develop to this point. Not to mention that Meng Qingwu herself was a beauty that could cause the downfall of a country. Therefore, she was an idol in every city and city in the Alliance. Meng Qingwu was an experienced person, so no matter how big the scene was, she wouldn't have stage fright. She first said a large amount of welcoming words to Miracle Commerce before entering the main topic. In this Miracle City Summit, we will first announce a very important product. This product has been developed by Miracle Commerce for a year and has finally stabilized. Actually, I think many people have already guessed it. That's right. It is the spiritual helmet and the spiritual network. Spiritual helmet. Spiritual network. the several emperor-level characters could feel the benefits of the spiritual helmet. This miracle summit was carried out through the spiritual network. After wearing the spiritual helmet, people from all over the world could gather in one place and interact with each other on a spiritual level. However, there were still many things they didn't understand about the spiritual helmet. They didn't know how much potential this product had. Let us first look at the data released by the Yunsex laboratory. Meng Qingwu raised her hand and a giant screen appeared in the middle of the hall. There was a dense amount of research data appearing on it. There were detailed records of wind, fire, water, earth, light, darkness, thunder, and other kinds of energy, as well as their attenuation data. As we all know, any conventional energy in the world will decay, weaken, and be consumed as it travels through time and space. This is because all energy is built on the foundation of space-time, so when space-time changes, these energies will also change. As Meng Qingwu spoke, she waved her hand gently and the data of the mental energy research appeared. Through our research, we discovered that the transmission of mental energy is not affected by time and space. Spiritual energy could directly affect the target across space, and spiritual energy could resist the flow of time. This important discovery means that mental energy is an independent energy that is on the same level as space and time. Therefore, the spiritual technology has a very long development prospect. The Dark Knight Elven King couldn't help asking, then what are the benefits? Our spiritual helmets won't be affected by spatial distance. Simply put, as long as we build a spiritual world transmitter in Miracle City, we can enter the spiritual world at any time and any place on the continent as long as we have a helmet with this function. Secondly, the flow of time in the spiritual world is different from the real world. A day in the real world can be 10 days, 20 days, or even longer in the spiritual world. This means that once the spiritual helmet is released, our continent will enter the spiritual network era. I believe that as long as everyone here works together with Miracle City, our spiritual network will be able to cover the entire continent in a short period of time. Too shocking. A single spiritual helmet could connect all the intelligent beings on the continent? Spiritual communication could cross space and even time. This had the chance to become an even higher level communication method. In order to allow the spiritual network era to come, Miracle Commerce will give everyone a large gift. At this point, Meng Qingwu suddenly waved her hand and a huge map slowly unfurled in the sky. When everyone looked at it, they were all shocked to discover that it was actually a map of a continent. Even though the scale was not too big, the geographical structure and shape were full of craftsmanship. This was definitely not a continent formed naturally, but rather a world created by countless artists. This is the continent Miracle Commerce worked with the flower fairies, over 100,000 employees, and over 100 smart brains. We have spent a large amount of manpower and resources to create this continent. We have named it the Miracle Continent. The Miracle Continent has an area of 5 million square kilometers, with a total of 661 cities that are still being expanded. Each area of the Miracle Continent has been carefully designed and created by us, with each city being able to hold over 10 million people. Not only are there large amounts of entertainment facilities, there are also countless arenas, trial fields, libraries, and etc., as well as a very mature business system. This is a world filled with fantasies. Each citizen of the continent will be able to enjoy things they can't experience in real life, learning the most advanced knowledge, interacting with people from all over the world, and experiencing the most exciting adventures. That's right, this is the most important product Miracle Commerce has released. It is a world of entertainment, leisure, adventure, social interaction, business, learning, and even research. The various emperors were all present. Everyone was astonished by this. Miracle Commerce had created a giant virtual world out of thin air, allowing the people of all the countries on the continent to come here through their spiritual connections. There was no cost to anything in the spiritual world. There were many things that couldn't be experienced in the real world, but there were countless things in the virtual world. The Miracle Continent had a total of 661 cities, and it was very convenient to travel between them because each city in the spiritual world was filled with transport points. You could teleport within the city and you could teleport between cities, so it was very convenient to communicate with each other in the spiritual world. This could be said to be a giant social platform that could hold over 10 billion people on the continent. This was the significance of the spiritual connection. Once this kind of large platform that spanned across races and countries was formed, there would be over 10 billion people living in it. This would create a large economic value. Even if the Miracle Continent's spiritual connection brought about business, economics, education, and entertainment, just selling helmets would create a large amount of income. Once the spiritual connection covers the entire continent, it will bring an unimaginable change to our lives. This is the progress of an era and the progress of history. Everyone here is a witness. Meng Qingwu then announced, but Miracle Commerce has no intention of relying on this technology to dominate the continent. Miracle Commerce's philosophy will always be an open platform and a win-win situation. The temptation of this kind of superior technology was something that no one could resist. Miracle Commerce wanted to promote their products and technology to the entire continent, so they had to give the cake to others. Otherwise, with Miracle Commerce's current strength, they wouldn't even have time to spread their technology before they would be destroyed by the combined efforts of others. Meng Qingwu announced in a generous voice, "The second major matter of this Miracle Summit is that Miracle Commerce will be opening their platform. We are prepared to share the spiritual helmets technology and even the spiritual spaces technology with everyone and discuss the possibility of cooperation." When this was said, the emperors were shocked. Although they could guess Miracle Commerce's thoughts, Meng Qingwu directly saying it out like this kind of courage still shocked them. After all, Miracle Commerce had just matured this kind of technology and they didn't even have time to harvest the fruits. Were they willing to give the fruits to others? But it was still a bit too early to be shocked. Actually, it's not just the spiritual technology. Meng Qingwu then announced, "We have normal communication technology, energy technology, weapon technology, and many other fields. All of them are open to cooperation. In the future, as our cooperation grows closer, these technologies will be opened to our allies sooner or later." The meaning behind her words was, whoever had a good relationship with Miracle City would be able to obtain more technology. So, if they wanted Miracle City's technology, they had to quickly establish a good relationship with Miracle City. Other than that, regarding the exploration of outer space and the underground world, Miracle City and the large alliances have made a decision. Meng Qingwu said to the emperors present, "We are willing to establish a joint venture in your country or region to explore beyond the heavens or underground. We will support you in exploring beyond the heavens or the underground world and excavating resources, so as to strengthen the development of external resources." This was also a very attractive condition. Whether it was outer space or underground, they were all rich in rare resources. These empire-level powers were already very strong, so if they established this kind of cooperation, they would be able to directly enter the sky and enter the earth. Even for the development of the empires, there would be countless benefits. Finally, Miracle City is sincerely recruiting outstanding scholars from various countries to participate in the Yun sect's research. In the future, we can establish Yun sect branches all over the continent, allowing the talents of the continent to participate in source energy technology research. How was Miracle City here to negotiate? This was simply giving benefits to the large countries. The large characters didn't even have time to speak before Meng Qingwu threw a large pile of benefits at them until they couldn't tell north from south. Chapter 609. Miracle City's determination and sincerity were impeccable. The emperors had nothing to say about this. These emperor-level characters, although they were very strong, it was still difficult for them to destroy the alliance. After all, these empire-level powers were too far away from Miracle City, and with the Big Dry Empire as an example, they wouldn't easily become enemies with Miracle City. Why would they give up on such a large benefit? Why would they take the risk of going against Miracle City? Miracle City didn't need to worry about not being able to find a partner. Even if all the empire-level powers of the continent gathered to deal with them, Miracle City would just move to outer space or the underground world. What could these empire-level powers do to them? There were many benefits to the Miracle Summit, and once it was implemented in the future, it would be enough to increase the country's strength. Only the Big Dry Empire would be kicked out, and the Big Dry Emperor's intestines would turn green with regret at that time. No one wanted to follow in their footsteps. Meng Qingwu introduced Miracle Commerce's technology in detail, allowing the emperors to have a deeper understanding of Miracle City's situation. Then they discussed the specific cooperation plan. First, popularizing the spiritual network was Miracle City's most important task. Miracle City would quickly reach this goal, so Miracle City would provide the spiritual helmet's design and manufacturing method to the empire-level powers for free. Each empire would build a production base for the spiritual helmets. Miracle City would also provide an intelligent factory to invest in. In other words, from the helmet itself to the manufacturing process, Miracle City would be in charge of all the technology. The empires would provide resources and manpower, so they could just lie down and make money. Who would reject this kind of business that wouldn't lose money? The spiritual helmet's production cost was very low, so it was suitable for a large-scale promotion. The empire-level powers didn't have a small population. Even if the dragon territory didn't have a large population, the subordinate kingdoms and powers had a large population, so this was a market worth at least several billion source stones. No one had any objections. The most important matter had been decided. Meng Qingwu represented Miracle Commerce to discuss other cooperation with the emperors. This cooperation included the Miracle Shopping Centers, the construction of spatial logistics, the construction of the transport system, as well as smart brains, source energy weapons, and other important products. Popularizing these things would only be good for everyone and not bad. The emperors did not voice any objections. Finally, at the Miracle Summit, Meng Qingwu reached a preliminary agreement with the various large characters. There were a total of 17 agreements and over 40 projects and fields of cooperation. The success of this Miracle Summit would have a profound influence on the continent, and it would lay an important foundation for miracle commerce to spread across the continent. Millions of Alliance members witnessed the entire meeting. Even if they didn't have the chance to come to the Miracle Summit, it was broadcasted to every Alliance city. This time everyone cheered once again. A large breakthrough. This was a large breakthrough. Entrepreneurs from all over the world were sharpening their knives. These empire-level powers were enough to cover more than half of the continent's strength. It was not just a few empires, but hundreds of kingdoms. These were all places that had not experienced any development, and this meant that there was a huge business opportunity. A brand new entrepreneurial storm was about to begin. It's finally over. Chu Tian sat in the main hall of the castle and took off his helmet. Meng Qingwu, Meng Yingying, and Nan Gongyun were all sitting here, and they all took off their helmets. Meng Yingying cheered, "Elder sister is too great. I never thought things would go this smoothly." Nan Gongyun also had an excited look on her face. After all, this was a very important transformation for the company. We're going to do something big and dominate the continent's market. Meng Qingwu, on the other hand, said calmly, "Today, it was because we made sufficient preparations, and the great emperors were all improvised, so they were shocked by our conditions. But I believe that these people who walk at the top of the continent are not so easy to deal with. We only made a good start. The most important thing is how to continue on." At this time, Vivian called Chu Tian. "Big Brother Chu Tian, Big Brother Chu Tian, my royal father, as well as Death Wing, Burst Claw, Thunder's Fury, and City Lord Bo Sha. They are all anxiously waiting to see you, but I've blocked them for now. Do you think you can meet them?" "Of course. How about this? We'll have a small meeting in Moonshine Town." Vivian let out a long sigh of relief. Meng Yingying asked in a curious voice, "What happened?" "The 5 leaders of the Alliance want to see me. Their reactions are expected." Chu Tian was not surprised by their reactions at all. "We found even more powerful partners, so Miracle City's dependence on them has greatly decreased. Their importance to Miracle City has suddenly decreased, so their hearts are definitely lacking. We need to appease them at this time." Meng Qinggu nodded in agreement. We have just started cooperating with the empire-level powers and the entire plan is still in the air, so internal stability is very important at this time. I'll contact Qin Bingyu and have her come over. We'll have an internal alliance summit. Miracle City's alliance was divided into the Kingdom Alliance, the Forest Alliance, and the West Sea Alliance. These three alliances had a total of 6 leaders. They were the Great Zhou Queen Qin Bingyu, the 4 giants of the Forest of Chaos, and West Sea City's City Lord Bo Sha. The 6 of them had their own strengths, but their statuses were basically the same. Chu Tian chose Moonshine Town next to Miracle City as the location for the meeting. This small town was specially developed by the Wood Elves to make it easier for them to work and study in Miracle City. Although the town was very small, there were often fashion shows, food festivals, music festivals, and art festivals. Now it was a very popular and unique elven town. Because of the various conditions, Moonshine Town applied for a transport tower from the Alliance and Miracle City approved it. Now that the town had a transport tower, it was very convenient to travel. The 6 leaders of the Alliance had all arrived. Other than Qin Bingyu's calm expression, the others were a bit anxious. I'm truly sorry, I came a bit late. I didn't think everyone would arrive this quickly. Chu Tian walked over with a laugh. I think everyone came to the Miracle Summit today. I wonder if you have any opinions on Miracle City's future strategy? Don't beat around the bush. Burst Claw couldn't keep his cool. The current situation is very complicated. We haven't even finished digesting our internal resources and we've suddenly pulled in most of the continent's powers. What should we do in the future? You have to give me a direction. Thunder's Fury said in a voice filled with agreement. Once Miracle City unites with the empires, there will be no power on the continent that can shake us. What should we do in this change? The 5 alliance leaders all spoke one after another. Chen Bingyu just drank her tea. Chu Tian raised his hand and said, Everyone, don't be anxious. Although Miracle City is cooperating with the empires, our roots will always be in the Forest of Chaos. Whether the alliance prospers or not, whether the alliance is strong or not, this will directly affect Miracle City's confidence. If we don't have enough strength, how can we hope to cooperate with these large powers? So no matter what stage Miracle Commerce develops to, the Forest of Chaos and the Alliance will always be our top priority. His words weren't wrong. The leaders were still not assured. Deathwing said with knit brows, You've given the spiritual helmet and the spiritual space manufacturing method to the various countries for free. We won't have any competitive advantage in this area in the future. This was what the Elven King felt very uncomfortable about. Chu Tian had given the spiritual helmet's blueprint and even the spiritual space manufacturing method to others for free. After these empire powers obtained this technology, would they still cooperate with the Alliance and Miracle City? Wouldn't they earn more by opening their own furnace? So you're worried about this? I can only say that you're worrying too much. When have you ever seen me suffer a loss? Chu Tian shook his head and said, Relax, even if they know the spiritual space manufacturing method, they can't create a virtual world like the Miracle Continent. But a long-lasting and stable spiritual world is definitely not something that can be casually created. Chu Tian simply explained, even if it is a spiritual world, it needs a stable set of laws to operate, otherwise the entire space will collapse in the blink of an eye. I am indeed prepared to spread the spiritual world manufacturing method, but just the manufacturing method isn't enough. So it was like this. Other than that, the spiritual world needs to be maintained and managed. The Miracle Continent uses over 100 super smart brains, but it can barely keep the world running. Chu Tian continued to say, The Miracle Continent will have more and more people in the future and the demand for super smart brains will increase. Several hundred, several thousand, over 10,000, it's all possible. Just this point alone is enough to make all the people on the continent who want to copy Miracle Commerce cry themselves to sleep in the toilet. So it was like this. The 2 barriers Chu Tian pointed out were the most basic technology barriers. But other than these, there were many other restrictions. Therefore, it was impossible for the various countries to create their own spiritual network system for at least 50 years. If the people of the continent wanted to enter the spiritual network, they could only enter the Miracle Commerce platform. First Claw then said, even like this, the spiritual helmet is a large source of income. If you give them the manufacturing method, wouldn't that be giving away billions of source stones for free? The others all nodded. If the spiritual helmet was given to them, just how large of an income would it be? It's wrong for you to think like this. Chu Tian said with a smile, I want to popularize the spiritual network as soon as possible, so we can only use this method. The spiritual helmet might have a large source of income, but don't forget that the profit from the hardware is usually done in one go. What we can really earn is not the hardware, but the giant platform of the virtual space. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.